think we're coming up on YouTube, and I'm just going to check if we're live on Facebook. Looks like we are. Sweet, dude. I think we are.
Sweat.
And I think we're live now. Hey, welcome everybody. And today is a very special day. It's Tuesday. It's Taco Tuesday, but at the same time,
Tuesday, and it's beautiful outside.
It's beautiful out, and we have today in the studio with me my old friend from way back in the day. I've known this gentleman since middle school.
Middle school, man.
And then high school, and then
1 year of high school, and then I had to move.
I think I saw you at Saddleback a little bit, once or twice, and that was it. And then we haven't really been able to like hang out much, but I was so happy that you agreed to come down here, by the way. Thank you for driving all the way to beautiful Pacific Beach, San Diego, where we're located. And, come be on this podcast with me today.
Hey, man, like I was saying, I know how it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. Like, I want to try and help everybody out and do what I can, to get your stuff out there. And then I figured with my stuff that I try and do, help push that as well. Just like collaborate, team effort.
I think that's the way the world works. It's communal.
It should work.
Yes, it should work that way. No, so I'm super excited. And for, we're going to get back into our conversation we were just having before the podcast. But, for anybody just joining us, I want to just quickly introduce Logan here. He is an actor slash, character performer slash impressionist. This guy, if you check out his Instagram, he is loaded with all these awesome characters that he's played. He's a handsome old man too. Look at this guy. Love these shots. He's played Spider-Man. Look at you. What are you doing hanging out with is it
that's Donald Duck, dude. He's number one.
Mr. Donald. I like look at this. I mean, you've just done all kinds of cool stuff.
That was back in my my young years. What some people would call the old days, the
good old days. This guy, he's a true
That's
artist.
my favorite stuff.
Yeah, you true artist. Funny guy. I love him. He's a funny guy. Man, I just was super impressed just watching all of the stuff that you've been doing over the last few years, just like watching you progress and kind of find your passion. It's really exciting because there's so many people that are just stuck with like, killing their passion and just like being in like a comfort zone and not really like branching away from that. So it's really, I know what you're doing is in a lot of ways scary because it's, it's uncharted territory for you. No, it's not, there's no standard way of making it out into the entertainment business and in the industry. Certainly with the internet, it's possible a lot more than it was before. And, and this is just the way we do it. We just got to go at it.
Troy have been opened.
That's right.
Like there's a way in now.
Yes.
And it's easier than you think if you just put more effort in it. And I feel like I've found that out in the last few months. Yeah. Like every day I feel like I'm learning something different. Like today, Yeah. Like I feel like there's always something new.
So let's start here. So where did this passion for wanting to go into the like kind of the entertainment business? So how do you self-describe yourself and like where did you start out? What brought this about? Because I don't remember if you were doing like theater in school or anything. I don't recall.
Like Party Princess stuff?
No, just like everything. Like how did you get into
performing?
Like performing? Yeah. How'd you get into that? Or what of all things and be like, I'm going to dress up in costume and play like it's Halloween every day.
God, yeah,
I mean, and you go all out. Like you make your own props, which we're going to get into, which is amazing. You make your own props, you do your costumes, and then you also are doing these impressions. So it's not like you're just on the surface looking the part. You can actually play the part.
I just want to be real about it. I don't like fake stuff. Like I understand like the fun of the magic of like movies and like, make believe. And that's what I try to do. Like I try to make magic and bring movies to people. But like, I work out and like I, do enough cardio so that way like I can at least attempt or do successfully after a part like Spider-Man jumping off the roof.
Right.
Like, I need to be able to.
You're like ready in all ways. It's like, what do you need? You're like I see what you're saying. So you're like making sure that you are fit in all angles that it takes to be a successful actor that plays a part, and you're gonna do it by, making yourself fit in all the different areas. And I think that's Nancy outside. Too bad. Hey, Nancy, we're live. Hey, I'm going to let her in.
That's all good.
This is what happens when you do a live podcast. Our studio assistant pops by.
Here's our studio assistant. Well, not ours, but his. But anyways, I'll keep the line business or Disney. Well, Well, with the picture with Gaston up there, that was an idea from a company that I work for, or used to work for. And we just started doing different characters than what you would normally do. And Gaston was one character that a couple people said they thought
that
I
you
could
look
do.
like?
Yeah, that they thought I looked like, and I was like, okay. And I kind of did it. And kind of going off of that, what you were talking about with like how I got into this in the first place.
Yes.
It was kind of like that, honestly. Like it just kind of like fell right there, and I was just like, sure.
People
like,
told you this is something you should pursue.
Yeah, like that. I mean, that kind of goes deep into things about like parents and stuff, like my mom.
Yeah.
But anyways,
which you feel free to talk about.
Yeah, but like where was I going with this?
How you got started?
How I got started. Okay, so how I got started was when I was performing and I was acting in like my own personal stuff that I did in high school.
Yeah.
More specifically in Northwood, because I really didn't do it, at all very much when I was hanging out with you guys or hanging out in middle school. It was mostly like writing stories and like comic books. I remember trying to sell those in middle school.
Nice.
But it kind of just moved on. And I think what I've come to understand is that I just want to be a storyteller. I don't necessarily want to be one specific thing. I just want to be able to be somebody who can tell a story, somebody who can convey a message in a language that isn't just one language, like
not one format.
You can
either.
Exactly. You can. I want to be able to make movies or like tell stories where you can see it and you don't have to understand the language that they're speaking. You can listen to the movie on mute essentially and understand what's going on. But anyways, the way I had gotten into all of this, actually got into it was I was working at Disneyland, and I had always been interested in film, and I'd always been interested in acting, and like I had done some things here and there, and I had tried before, but I wasn't really super into it. And so one day I was working at Monsters Inc., the ride in California Adventures. I was an attractions host.
Gotcha.
Is what they call it. And Monsters Inc. was one of my rides. And every morning at Monsters Inc., they open up the ride with what they call like the morning scream or something like that. I'm probably wrong, but they open up the ride. Sully comes out. The character Sully.
Yeah,
Sully comes out, and he comes up to the front of the ride, and he gets all the guests mostly the kids, ready to scream, so that way they can power the attraction. And I've always loved Monsters Inc. because I always thought Monsters Inc. was one of the most clever Pixar movies out of all of them, other than like Toy Story and stuff. But I've always felt like that was such a real magical Disney moment, and I loved doing that every morning. So every morning I would go out there, and I would be the character host. Or no, I wouldn't be the character host. I would be the attractions host that would be helping the character host with the character. So I would be a part of this impromptu kind of show where Sully shows up, where we're like, hey, we need to power the attraction, but like we really need you guys to scream. And, we get the guests to scream, and then, we pretend to like, oh, do we have enough screams? And then, they're like, oh no, like we don't have enough screams. And, I did this whole like fun bit, and then I told
interactive, getting the audience like riled up.
I told the attractions host like, hey, can Sully come in like not, because Sully comes in and then the show starts.
Yeah.
I was like, can we start the show and then Sully comes in? I was like, can we have him? And she's like, yeah. And so they like waited backstage. And then when I was like, had them scream twice, I was like, okay, when they scream the second time and they're done, start walking. And so they screamed the second time, and I'd be like, oh no, like they don't, there's no scream, no power to the ride. And so then Sully comes out, and I was like, I think we need an expert on this. And then Sully comes out. And then all the kids are like, Sully! And everybody's like freaking out as a character. And at the time, it was when Monsters University was just coming out. So Monsters University, or no, wait, I take that back. That was when I was working in attraction or in entertainment. Sully was still naked. So Sully had no clothes on. He just had his fur. But he comes out, and he goes and he scares the kids, right? Because he's Sully. He can scare kids. And so he scares the kids, and I'm like, oh, that powered the attraction up. And they get the whole attraction powered up, and they're like, all right, guys, come on in. And then we let them in, and they ride the ride. And they used to be able to, yep, there he is. And they used to be able to, if you want to look up, you can look up Sully Disneyland, and it'll probably come up what the character looks like in costume.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh,
There you go. So yeah, Sully would come out, and that's
a really good costume, actually.
Yep, it's you know what the view. Sorry Disney, sorry, but like the view is out of the mouth.
Oh,
Disney would be like, shut this shit down.
Gotcha. So he's seeing right out of there.
Yeah.
That's where he sees. Okay.
Yeah. So not to ruin the magic for anybody, but yeah, that's where they
We're
see.
getting behind the magic. We're getting behind the foo-foo today.
So if you want to know like how to stay safe and not get hit by Sully because he's so big and he has blinders and it's hard for him to see. Look for where the mouth is looking because that's
where he can see you.
Where he can see you.
All right.
So yeah. Anyway, so Sully would come out and he would come and he would scare the kids, and then the kids would do their scream. Obviously, they're not scared, but they're into it. They understand the show, and they scream. Powers the attraction. They go on the ride. Sully sometimes used to ride with them in like the wheelchair car, which was like this big car with a big spot in the back and then like a row in the front of it, so people who have a wheelchair can ride. And so Sully would sit in the back or stand in the back, which is incredibly unsafe, and that's why they don't let them do it anymore. Because they used to have Mike and Sully go through the ride, and they used to have Mike sit in the front and Sully in the back. But I got into it because after the show, the character host, who was a lead apparently, came up to me and was like, "Hey, you should try out and be a character." And I was like,
because you were so good at directing crowd and coordinating and having a good perception of how to feel the audience and then direct them in a certain way. Like you have that aptitude in you, and she probably saw that and said, I think you could actually play a character very well. And
I don't, and I did it, but I feel like I owe a lot of that to Disney too, because Disney to the core is a great company. It has a lot of flaws right now. I'll get into that later, but to its core, what Walt believed in, it's really powerful, and it really helps with what people are going through. And I just felt like, I wanted to be able to continue that kind of legacy on by telling stories like that. And so so after I had been told, hey, you should try out to be a character, I was like, yeah, why not? Yeah. And so I messaged a manager that I used to work for at the attractions department, and I had known that he had transferred to entertainment because they swap managers back and forth all the time, just so that way they can, get pay raises and whatnot. And so the manager that I knew, Ryan, he helped me out, was able to get me to not the first audition, but to the callback. So it was me and 11 other people, 12 in total, that were the only ones that were called back for the callback only, because he had sent my headshot. What did you audition for? So I just sent my headshot in to Ryan, and Ryan sent it in to whoever was doing the casting, which I'm assuming at the time was Amy Berkeley, which is she's the one who hired me. But originally they wanted to cast me for Flynn Rider. And so I was like, what? And I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, I can do it. I thought to myself, I can do it. Why not? I'll try. But I don't look anything like this guy.
This cat right here.
Yeah, this guy's straight up from Spain, and I'm straight up out of Germany. There's no.
Just get a little tan on you, maybe.
Yeah, try. But I'm more of a Kristoff. I've gotten a lot of money being able to play Kristoff, and I actually was told halfway through my entertainment career at Disney, if you want to call it that.
What's the character?
It's spelled with a K. Kristoff. Just press Frozen, honestly, and it'll come up because people spell it wrong all the time. There you go.
There he is.
It doesn't even matter. You could probably put off, and it's Frozen. Kristoff, is that what you mean?
Okay, so this is what you wanted to play.
This is actually, I didn't even know about this character until, Frozen started getting announced, and then they started releasing pictures. And I was in entertainment at the time, and I was like, oh shit, this guy looks like me. And so
he totally does.
I was like, fuck, I could totally do that. And Amy Berkeley apparently had was thinking about this too. So anyways, when they were first hiring me, they wanted to play me as Flynn Rider. I didn't get that part. I got Prince Philip.
Yeah.
They gave me Prince Philip because they said they wanted to put me through first and see how I did, because Prince Philip's an easy character, because what does he do? He's just super nice.
Yeah.
Prince Philip was a little bit more fun, but Yeah, so I went and tried out and did Flynn and did my best Flynn. And the way I got that job was Amy Berkeley at the audition. When it was my turn to go up, they put you in this big room, and it's a huge dance room, and you're set up against the wall.
Yeah.
And there's like a mirror facing the judges or whatever, the auditioners, and it's Amy Berkeley and 2 or 3 other people on her side. And they're sitting at this small table inside this big ass room.
Yeah.
And we're all up against the wall right here. And one by one, we have to come up to the front in front of them in this big room. And girls are like peeing their pants. They're so nervous.
Really?
Because this is a callback. A callback. Like,
define what that is.
A callback at Disneyland is like, it's like getting told that like you might win the lottery. Because when you go to an audition at Disneyland, there's probably about 2,000 to 3,000 people at that audition.
Damn.
And only about
what?
I swear to God.
How many days does that take?
A day.
What? They're going through 3,000 people in one day.
At the most.
So how long? That's not even possible, dude.
At the most.
What?
It's an all-day thing. So
that math doesn't add up to me, but okay.
It's an all-day thing. They start early in the morning.
So they're giving everybody like less than a second.
And the way it works, I've never been to one of the face auditions, but I can't imagine it's any different from what's called a fuzzy audition, which means like an audition to become a Mickey or Minnie.
Worse than the doctor's office at Disneyland, guys.
Yeah. Like, you go in and for, I guess, a first audition, the way I understood it from the fuzzy auditions is that you go in and you play a character that they just yell out. So they have like these lines of people, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, go. And at each time they say go, a person's walking forward and they're doing a character. So when I went for my fuzzy audition, they had me walk down a line, and they're like, just act out a character. But for the face characters, I've heard that they make you come out and they like make you like walk, and they make you do your character that they had already assigned you.
Okay.
So they give you like a general character like Prince Philip or Prince Charming, or for girls it would be like Snow White or
so what was yours that day, or would you pick that day?
So not at the callback, but at the fuzzy audition, I picked Cruella de Vil, because what male character is like obviously like, you know, very flamboyant, you know, like
wait, what? That's a chick?
It's a chick. Yeah, Cruella de Vil is a chick. But the reason why I chose Cruella de Vil is because she can do something that a lot of the... So if you look at the Disney characters that are males,
yeah,
you got Hades, you got Gaston, you got Judge Claude Frollo, and then you have... what else? I guess like Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog. But there's just not that much to choose from. And so the guy
what do you mean?
characters...
There's not that many male characters in Disney?
No. There's just not that many male villains.
Villains, gotcha. So you were trying to play a specific villain.
Because Disney. They called out villains.
Oh.
Sorry, that's what I forgot to mention.
Okay, I was like, I didn't catch
That's
it.
the part. So they call out a character that you call like a type of character. So they have like different categories. So they yell at dwarves. So you can pick one of the 7 dwarves, or they call out villains. So you pick up one of the villains, or they call out like a general idea like cowboy. Or they call out spaceman, like they call out random things. So they called out villain at one point, and I just was like, what am I going to do? And I was like waiting for my turn. And then all of a sudden, boom, I was like, okay, Cruella de Vil. And so I was like, you know, flapping my like, you know, what's it called? Very flamboyant, very, very like, you know, like female.
Not masculine.
Very female. Yeah, not masculine at all. And so I was just like flapping around the duster, the coat that she wears, and like doing my cigarette, and then just going like, you know, like stupid stuff. And they're like, okay. And then like kept me for the next round, which like they did another round of it, and they had me do cowboy. And I was like this cowboy, like, you know, doing like walk across. I did and then I did like a lasso, and I pretended to lasso a bull. And then this is the part that I was trying to really sell them on. I was like, all right, I really gotta move, because when you go to a Disney audition for fuzzies, at least they want to see big movement. So for those of you that really want to be Goofy or really want to be Mickey, move around a lot. So when I went to the audition, I threw out the rope and I pretended to like really try and like pull this bull back, and I threw myself forward like it was pulling me, and I dragged myself up through the floor by pushing myself with the back of my feet, and I made it look like it was dragging me across the floor, and I heard people go, whoa, like, you know, like people were freaking out and people were laughing their asses off. And then I go to the next room because I had made it past that.
You
and
didn't
then
know how to do any of this beforehand? It just like kind of came
well, no,
out of you?
I guess. I don't know. Like, I kind of was into it, like, just because I've always been into movies.
That's what I like about what you're saying. Is this
honestly,
I
don't know when the true beginning of the spark of like, you know, like I want to act.
No, really I'm saying like in this. I get it. I mean, in this context specifically, you're at this audition. See, what fascinates me about your story right now is that you're saying you were in this moment, and then all of a sudden you started to do all these things to play this character. It's like, well, where the hell did all this come from? It's not pre-planned. It just kind of like, it's the same thing as like if I'm drumming, right? It's like I'm thinking somewhat what I want to do next, but all of a sudden like I'm already in like a flow state, and I'm just kind of producing things just coming out of me, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that with when you're auditioning here. It sounds like that, at least, that you're pulling out these like sort of like, oh, well, what would I do? So you're really almost immersed into this character so deeply right now.
Yeah, that's where it's gotten to. It's gotten to there. It took a long time to really get that deep about it. Like in the beginning, it was more or less like, what's the most exaggerated thing about this character that I can pull off? You know? So like for like Cruella de Vil.
But when you're in like an audition state, right? And you're on a moment's notice having to decide on a category and the character to play, like, it's just, to me, it's fascinating that you're able to bring up like this sort of level of analysis in your head and spark like, okay, I'm gonna think about, you know, like what you just said, I'm the worst, you know, I want to pick a villain, and then I'm gonna look at what's the most like absurd thing this character could do, and I'm gonna play that out. You know, I think, what did you say? I don't know the exact word, but
like exaggerate
whatever they do, whatever is like a personality trait of this character. Like you're almost instantly like, that just comes out of you. Like,
honestly,
so cool.
I think it kind of started, the inception of all this was like just years of Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
I had I'm
subconsciously that was just programming you.
What I've come to understand in the last 2 years is that I'm extremely ADD. So like I have to take medication. Like I'm on Concerta right now. And I'm not ashamed of saying that. I'm not like,
what is it, like
saying it.
It's like Adderall type thing, right?
It's like it's not
similar.
I guess some people would call it a party drug, but most people call it like the college drug. The stuff that you would take gives you focus, makes you it helps you like study, helps you like stay up late and finish your tasks.
Yeah, I've experimented with Adderall myself.
I used to take Adderall,
but pretty crazy substances. I don't think they're for us to be playing around with. It's insane. Like, but I mean, I can understand the need. Like, you know, if you're diagnosed medically, but it's like there's just a huge you know. Like people are over prescribing them to kids at a level where you're just like, dude, it's a kid with energy. He doesn't have ADHD or ADD.
And you know what's funny? You mentioned that. Like I had looked into the history of like this and be like, why weren't my parents aware of this when I was growing up? Because I feel like if my parents, my mom,
I was just like you, dude. We were both like super energy.
Yeah,
kids.
Like most people think that. Like when you have a kid that's super full of energy, like I can tell the difference now at birthday parties. The kid that has like the most energy in the room doesn't necessarily have ADD. It's just that he's a kid. You know, the kid that has ADD is sitting there and he's like going like, and then like all of a sudden he's going, ah! Like, you know, and yelling out something really loud. Like, you know, that could be also Asperger's too, but at the same time, like that's kind of like how my brain sometimes functions. Like sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, nope, don't say it. Okay, fuck it. Like, and then you say it, you know, it's very like on impulse.
Yeah.
That's what my ADD is definitely about. So it's gotten me in trouble, but it's also gotten me places. Like I feel like sometimes like my impulsivity has like helped me think of different situations. So like what you were saying with like, you know, how do you come up with these characters like all of a sudden off of the top of your head? The best way I can explain it is that it's like I Love Lucy episode of the conveyor belt going by really fast.
Oh, and she's trying to
trying to put it all together.
Yeah.
And like without Concerta, it's like, ah! And it's like, I got something. Then with the Concerta, it's just like, and then with like, you know, marijuana too, I've tried, because if you Concerta, it's really, really, really hard for you to eat.
It makes
You
your
have
appetites.
no
I mean, I
appetite.
think that's true for any of those like amphetamines or whatever the hell their category are. But no, I totally understand, man. If something like that, like here's the thing, and anybody can make weird sort of judgments about everybody's situation but their own, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so easy to like just point fingers. But if you have found a way to hone your skill and to put yourself in a state where you're able to perform and do what you're passionate about, I don't think there's any reason to like, justify it to anybody else. And it seems like you don't care about it anyway. You don't need to justify it to anyone. But I mean, that's kind of like where I see it. I see it from your point of view. Like if you found a way to level yourself out and then perform and do your thing, that's your thing, man. That's your thing. So more power to you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. But like I was really curious. The reason I went into this topic about the, you getting into that character.
Sorry if I'm going off on tangents, by the way.
It's all good, man. This is our show. That's what we do. We're not on anybody else's schedule. So what I really like about, you, and the reason why I wanted to really have this conversation, a large part of what I'm trying to do is about self-awareness. And it seems to me that being an actor, you have to have a very high level of self-awareness because you have your base life, like let's call it that. You have your role, like your Logan, you have your parents, you have your
objective.
Objective. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, like let's say that's your life. Because when people say, oh, I have an alter ego or I have a character I play, well, it's an alternative ego, but that means it implies that there is an ego that's a base ego that exists for there to be an alternate, right? So, okay, so then you have different characters that you can play. And we all do this, like throughout the day, like when you're at your job, you're like an employee. When you come home to your family, your father, your husband, your boyfriend or a girlfriend or mother, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're almost like playing these different roles with the people you interact with all day long anyway. So to me, it makes sense. Like that's where acting is like taking that metaphor to the next level where you're just like almost ready to, and you have to be really understanding it. And what I mean by you being more self-aware is like part of recognizing that the story that you have about yourself is also just a story. It's just another narrative that's playing in your head. And so all you're doing, I think a really efficient actor, like, when I watch Chaplin, where like Robert Downey Jr. played Chaplin, amazing. It's so like the way I'm thinking, okay, what does it take to be a really good actor? And I think what my theory is that you're very observant and able to recognize that you can take your story, shelf it for a little while, pop on this character story, understand where all of the wirings come in, because essentially our body is just the animation ground, right? It's like where these sensors, whatever input you give it with your stimulus of your brain, outputs as like chemical responses and articulates like, muscle movement or whatever. And you almost like put on like, for lack of a better terminology, you put on a new suit, a new coat, a new attire, even, not just physically, but internally you're like putting on like this brand new character, and you are so good at just believing that this is your life. Like you are Batman, I am Superman, or whatever the fuck, but like that's what I think makes a good actor.
I totally agree with you. And you know what? The more I think about it, like in that way, and I've thought about it before the way you're thinking right now and the way you're talking about, like it does take, like you do have to shelf yourself.
Yes.
Like there's Logan that like a lot of people shouldn't see and should never see, and that's with everybody. There's a lot of people that
there's a shadow to everyone.
They have exactly. Everybody has their demons or whatever you want to call it.
There's no light without shadow.
Exactly, and it's not a big deal if you have it. Like just because you have it doesn't make you like a freak. It doesn't make you weird. It just means that you're a human. And I've had to come to realize that I'm not this crazy person. So,
you're not the voice in your head.
Exactly. So when I started acting, at first it wasn't so much as like concentrated as you're talking about it. Like you make it sound so smart,
no.
But like you make me sound so smart. Like I actually planned all this out. But like it's more or less just like I don't know. It kind of just happened that way because I've come to figure out that I need to shelf myself, not just in my roles. I need to shelf myself.
And just day-to-day life.
Day-to-day life.
100%, man.
Like,
100%.
Like, I need to shelf myself, not just because, like, I need to play a certain role in the moment, because if I did something impulsive, it would ruin something for this person or for that person, or it would just ruin your chances of, obtaining the objective of what you want to do. I've just had to learn to, like, shelf myself in like parts of my life, so that way I'm not like destructive, because I've been destructive before with it.
And a good part, just to add on to what you're saying, I think, and I've done the same. And the way I've figured out, meditation is a good way to recognize, like when you sit, and meditation is not. I'm not talking about like trying to sit like yogi or whatever. That's cool. That's like the preferred way. You'll actually find if you do it that's like the best way to do it. But at the same time, even if you just sit still in your chair, even for like 5 minutes, just don't try to move or like go for your phone, and just sit there and just simply observe what kind of thoughts come up in your head, what kind of stories are coming up. And then like at the moment you feel like you've gone away with the story, just bring yourself back to like, realizing, hey, I'm just sitting here. I'm actually not doing anything. Oh yeah, you know how that thought just came up about I have to do this, or I have to like go and do this? I'm just going to hold off on that and just let that thought keep going. And you'll find that you almost come into this state where you're like completely empty and at peace, and there's no chaos. But what does that mean? That means mostly all of your chaos is just self-derived. It's all in your head. You are simply your own worst enemy, because you don't recognize that there's this loop all day from the moment you wake up to the time you're going to bed, that you are constantly being directed by this voice in your head. And the one thing I would like to point out is, I have a brother. I have an older brother who he's disabled. And then he has a little. He's not like dumb or anything, but like society would categorize him as maybe like somewhat slow or retarded in that sense. Like,
do you mind if I write in this? Just
so
please.
I
remember what I have like in my head. But continue what you're talking about.
So anyway, for my brother, I always notice like he talks out loud his thoughts, like. Even if he's singing a song, or like if he finds a tune, he'll just sing it out loud. And like if you were in a public place, or if you were in a room by yourself, somebody would say, "Oh, that's crazy. Like only crazy people do that." And I'm like, really? Only crazy people do that? How about you fucking think about all the thoughts in your head?
What's crazy?
Yeah, and it's also like the only difference between you and somebody who is crazy that's speaking their thoughts out loud is that you're doing it in your head and they're saying it out loud, and you're calling them crazy. When you're doing the same exact thing and you're inside of your head, but you're not even aware.
It's an insecurity that people have. People have a need to say things. That's what I've noticed. Even if it's like a positive situation, people just have a need to say something. If you're in a room with somebody and you're sitting across from them and there's no reason for them not to look at you, or there's no reason for you to not to look at them or to be in contact with you, I've noticed so many people that are just like so awkwardly like, so I noticed your hair is blonde. Like, like...
They have this internal dialogue going on inside. That's the thing. It's like when you come into any situation, and this is where like part of your audition really talks to me, is that you walk, like the way I visualize it in my head. Like even when people describe a story, what we're doing is you're saying words and I'm visualizing pictures in my head, right? So if my pictures of what you're describing is different, then I could misunderstand what you're saying. And that is like what happens when people misunderstand each other, is that the words that are being spoken are being misrepresented in their head.
That's why text messages are
super
poisonous.
You're absolutely right.
Ooh.
But like as an actor, you're like going into this whole like, I'm going to really transform like myself to really believe in this character, and then everything that I put out, it almost like it kind of is scary when I see like some really, really good actors, because you think like, well, shit, that guy's really good at deceiving me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of like the Machiavellian part of acting.
You gotta be a real good liar.
That's true, but also you've probably found out that like in your head you have that some sort of, or maybe in your center, maybe in your higher kind of conscious level, or if you let's say like your best version of you, who wouldn't otherwise make bad choices. Because we all have like a sense of morality in our, self about like, what's right or wrong. So if let's say that's your highest version of you, the highest version of Logan, you would, I think inside that if you were to take this path of being an actor, you could very well become a very good con artist. You could very well like deceive people to a point. You know what?
Dangerously so.
And dangerously so.
So I with going off of that with the psychology, not to like interrupt you or anything.
No,
like
please,
that,
please.
But going back with my family, like with that stuff, what I've come to understand in just studying like pretty general psychology,
Yeah.
and taking sociology courses at like Cal State Long Beach, and then
Represent
like,
the shirt.
yeah, like represent. I'm wearing this, by the
Snoop
way,
Dogg.
not just to be like, hey, I go to Cal State Long Beach. I go to college. It's mostly because I wear this as like a badge.
Yeah.
Because when I go out and shoot, because I came out here and I was like, oh, like if I'm coming down to San Diego, like I'm gonna make a day out of it, because
Hell
I
yeah,
fucking love
dude.
San Diego.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so happy I am here. So I kind of wanted to like come a little bit early and, you know, take some shots of like somewhere, something that news is happening. And I couldn't find any news that was happening on Twitter, so I just went to Old Town and I decided to take some pictures. And there was a lot of going on at Old Town. Met some new people and like took a lot of great pictures of like their blacksmith place. But anyways, I wear this mostly just because like I want people to be like, oh, that guy's probably doing it because he's in school. Like that's why, because I don't want people to think like, why is this creepy guy taking a picture of my child? Like, I'm taking a picture of the guy in front of your child talking to him. I don't like taking pictures of kids unless I ask, because it is weird. Because there are people online that post pictures of kids for pornographic sites, but that's other stuff.
It's all good. So going back to your earlier point that you were trying to make about what I just said about being like deceiving, where were you trying to go with there?
Oh, so like, to be, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself, or I don't even call myself on my resume or in my social medias, I don't call myself an actor because
of the deceptive part about it?
No, just because of the fact that I just haven't gotten a role that I feel like would make me an actor. You know, like until, like, no offense to any of the films that I've, you know, co-starred in or starred in for independent films, like, but, you know, let's be honest, like until nobody really considers you like working in the industry until they've seen you at like your local cinema.
Gotcha.
So like that's how I feel. So until you've
I don't know,
seen
man.
me
Look
as
at
like
now,
an extra,
look at now
or
as
something.
people getting famous off of like YouTube, or people getting famous off of
That
Instagram.
too. Well, that
I was
too.
just saying, like nowadays, it's kind of silly because, you know, when we were growing up, we would look at the TV and the people that were on TV as like a celebrity, and we would look at them as like somebody to look up to, or be like, oh my God, that's a person of fame. But now you're getting these people popping out of like YouTube and Instagram that are like super popular, and they're like
Logan Paul,
semi-popular in real life too. When they go places, like people show up. Some of these followers are very loyal. It
is insane.
It's insane.
I have an example of that. I tried to do this one cosplay thing. So I'm sure everybody knows about cosplay now because of the internet.
Yeah.
And I tried doing this cosplay with this girl named Reagan, and she's pretty popular now. She actually might be right there on one
really
of those pictures.
Hot
She's
girls.
Yep, that's her right there. The one with the white jacket.
This one?
The white jacket to the bottom right, that looks like it might be her. No, it's not her. Never mind.
Nope. She's really hot though.
She does a lot of what is it? She did a lot of one of the characters in Overwatch. I don't remember. I played Overwatch for a while, but I can't remember what the damn character's name is. Oh, Mercy.
Okay.
She did a lot of Mercy cosplays. Personally, I'm not really into cosplay because, like, so I've been in these communities of people, and it just does not mesh with me and my attitude. So I went to one of these things with Reagan that I'm talking about. One of these things with Reagan called a shootout, which is not a good fucking thing to call it.
Not a good name.
Not at all. They called it the Cosplay LA Shootout, which sounds like a bunch of people are going to dress up in cosplay and maybe shoot some people.
Oh, that sounds bad.
That's pretty bad. Pretty bad. So
Bad
that was in like 2016. That was not long ago, which is weird. So where was I going with this? Oh, so at the LA Shootout, she wanted me to play Prince Philip because I had been Prince Philip in the park, and this is after I quit. So she like got
park being Disney.
Yeah. And so she brought me out. I dressed up as Prince Philip. We went out and did this photo shoot with these people, and like, you know, they're nice people, but like, God, I could not. Like I couldn't like, you know, get on the same level, and I couldn't understand the excitement behind it because I had done this before maybe. and this was to me a job. And for me, when I buy a costume, I'm not buying it for fun. I'm buying it because I'm going to make a return on this costume. You know,
Gotcha.
like I don't spend $1,000 on Batman just because I want to like be like, I'm Batman. You know, some of these people, like you look at some of this stuff, like they do incredible work. Like I go to cosplayers to get my stuff.
Yeah,
done.
people are real into like designing their costumes, and they take a serious amount of time.
I just can't understand some of the people that I've met in it. Like some of them, I'm like, hey, what's up? But like a lot of them get kind of dramatic, and it's weird, and it feels like I'm back at
What do you
Disney.
mean? Do you mean they're dramatic as if they're too caught up in their character?
Yes. Very much.
See, this is the problem with us as a whole anyway.
Well, this is the problem with Instagram. So the reason why cosplay exists is because of Instagram. Like,
Is that right?
I think so. I mean, I don't
know,
quote,
man.
Don't quote me. You could probably look it up
Sure.
and see if I'm right or wrong. But I think that
Is it cosplay like Japanese?
cosplay is one of like, I feel like Instagram has, if it didn't bring cosplay
Blend
to
of
the world,
costume and play after Japanese cospure, ultimately English. Hey Nancy, what the heck is cosplay? She said we need to dress up.
yeah.
Okay.
So when you dress up, it's like Halloween every day.
It's Halloween every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these people dig it and like, cool. Like, do what makes you happy, man. Like, I don't care.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, no shit off, you know, my ass. Like, I don't
So
care.
anyway, you were talking about cosplay.
But for cosplay, like some of it is just like, okay, good and get along with it because some people just get super dramatic and there actually are like scandals and stuff that have been happening.
So what I was going to point out with people getting so attached to their character is that's the same thing that happens, but people get too attached to their character being their version of who they think they are
Well, that's
in
like
their
who
head.
works at Disney right now.
Huh?
Dude, I left for
Say that again?
That's like who works at Disney right now. Like I left for so many, like Disneyland. I know we keep going back and forth on stuff, but it keeps kind of like referencing back to other things. So at Disneyland, I quit not only because it didn't work with my schedule and they didn't pay me enough, and they were like, "Why are you working another job? You should be working for just us." But I quit because of the culture at Disney. And what did I start off with this? Sorry, I was going.
We were talking about
Disney.
Some guy there at Disney who's so caught up with his character.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so it's like the people that have been hiring recently, and in my opinion, what I've come to see before I left, there were people that were going in and they were getting the parts, and they didn't look like the character. Mm-hmm. They just looked like everybody else. And I know that sounds really bad. I know that sounds really horrible, but let's be honest. What does Aurora look like? What does Jasmine look like? What does Pocahontas look like? They don't look like everybody. They look fantastic because they're cartoons, because they're supposed to be these very memorable movie-like featured faces. So like people that complain and say, well, I can do it because blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, no, because that's not how children see it. Because the reason what makes me so upset with, going off on another tangent, makes me so upset about people who are playing these characters and they play them so seriously, but they just don't look like the characters. They play them so seriously to the point of where they're coming up to like kids and stuff, and like some of the kids are happy, but like you're talking to a Cinderella who weighs 300 pounds, and that's not cool because like, and these aren't cosplay people; these are party princess people too. Like, I don't think it's cool because, like, that kid doesn't know Cinderella like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not how Cinderella is. That's not who Cinderella is in the stories. And there are stories with people that are of that weight.
I get it.
And there are people of, like, different cultures. And there should be more stories about them.
It's like a dude trying way too hard to play this character, and it just doesn't align.
Exactly. But anyways, back to cosplay people. People that do cosplay, some of them, there are stinkers that play it way too hard, and they play it so hard because they believe they are the character. They believe they are the character to the T.
That's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
Identity.
Like, look up some of these people. They say, "Well, I'm Wolverine," or they say, "Well,
oh yeah,
I'm
dog,
so-and-so."
you got metal coming out your knuckles."
And it's so funny because my girlfriend, she's been like told, she's been tasked before to schedule people for some of these party companies. So we used to work for a company called Once Upon an Island that we really used to love to work for, and she used to schedule stuff. Yeah, and she used to schedule stuff for them and put certain people in certain places as certain characters. you know, and some of these people would be so upset sometimes, and it wasn't just here, it was like other places too, and Disney especially. People would be so upset if somebody else was their character.
Oh, wow.
Like
you're the only one that can play this character. Oh my God, that reminds
me right now of something that happened at Disney too.
Okay,
so
go
people
for it.
the same exact situation. So there was this guy I used to work with, and I don't know why, but like this guy named Travis Slopemaker, who I used to work with, and I don't understand why, but he doesn't like me for no reason.
How could you not like me?
No.
Always people
I understand that
yeah.
there's reasons why not to like me. Like,
sure.
you know, there's a number of different reasons not to like certain other people, but like, I just didn't know what I had against this guy had against me.
Given the vast amount of people in the world, there's always going to be a subset of people that don't like you. Yeah, there's always going to
be like, what are the chances of this guy of this situation?
Sure.
So what happened was I hired into Disney as Prince Philip, right? And I auditioned as Flynn. That's not what I wanted. I wanted Flynn, you know? I wanted the guy who was like, hey, how's it going? You know, and like do that shit and like really like hit on
so well.
And I was single at the time, so I really wanted to just like hit on guests and as like a joke, you know? Because like I could.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it was
like a fun job.
It's
man.
fun. It's fun. You just like hit on like people. Like I would hit like if I did Flynn, I would have so much fun because
do some Flynn right now.
I can do like Smolder.
Do it. Put you on the spot. Ooh. Oh, he's got the facial expressions.
Flynn is just like really laid back. So Flynn would be just kind of like really cocky like this, and he would just kind of sit in his chair and just be like, mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
we're having.
And then like so at parties sometimes like if I'm talking to somebody and if they're just like keep going, like I'll trail off and I'll be like looking like a mirror and I'll just go, or I'll like look at myself and I'll like try and figure out like what to do in the situation. And they look at me and they're like, what are you doing? And I'll be like, oh sorry, what were you talking about? And like, you know, like just kind of go with the flow. Flynn's super easy. You just got to be a cocky asshole. Gotcha. Which is why Flynn was so much
easy
fun
to play.
And so easy to play because like, you know, going back to like that alternate ego like kind of idea that we were talking about, like that's like shelving yourself and like pulling out
so believed in that.
Pulling out another part of yourself that you don't show in an extreme, but now you are, you know?
I wonder if then like being a character, when you're pretending to be a character, like say like in cosplay or something, and you take it so seriously, I wonder if that's actually giving people sort of like a, you know, it's like giving you the permission to then like go to the extreme and so like act in like the most extreme way because you don't have repercussions because, well, hey, listen, I'm just playing in character. You can't be mad at me. So it's almost like saying I'm going to take away the responsibility I hold as, you know, myself because I'm playing a character. I can see where that's so dangerous.
It is. There's so much integrity in these jobs. Yeah. That's why it gets me so upset when people are just totally misrepresenting the character. You can't walk around and say that you're the goddamn character because you're not the fucking character. You know, you're not the character. You're somebody who has been privileged to be able to play this character, who has been made into mythology, essentially. This is American mythology, like whether you like to like think about it or not. Like some people, in like a way, you're right. It is because they're based off of mythologies themselves, and like you know these people who represent these characters, they're to children celebrities. Like I've been to birthday parties as Spider-Man. I've been to birthday parties as Jack Sparrow. As I
saw you just recently did Jack Sparrow. Yeah, that was like
it's a lot of fun, mate. But it's yeah, I'm not a very good Jack Sparrow.
I like Jack Sparrow, man. Who doesn't?
All right, I shouldn't be doing it.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. But you know, playing characters like that or Darth Vader, and you know, going into different voices and stuff like that. But like you know, I do the best that I can, but I know the characters that I can't do, and I play Jack Sparrow the best that I can. But like, I don't look like Johnny Depp.
No,
at all.
But you do look like Brad Pitt in the Fight Club. Which I
got a picture of that.
I saw you on your Instagram. That's a really, really good. I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick.
There's one with my girlfriend Allie who surprised me that Halloween and got a Marla Singer costume, even though she kept telling me she was never gonna be Marla Singer.
Yeah. Am I going too far?
No, there's one right up there, right there to the right.
Dude, this is pretty good. You do look like the guy.
Thanks, man.
And there was another one where you had.
And that's how I started doing that, is because people started telling me like, "Hey, you look like Brad Pitt," and I was like, "Okay, I guess," but like, sure, and like, you know, that kind of
you got to play it out.
Fed a little bit of my narcissism.
This
so
one,
I was like, okay.
When I saw this, I was like, "Wait, is that Brad Pitt or is that you?"
That is one of my favorite ones, just because of,
this
like,
is a really, really good
shot.
picture.
I wish we shot it somewhere else, but my really good friend Danny, who was
it looks like an alley, man. What do you think?
Oh, dude, like speaking of Jack Sparrow, you want to see an accurate Jack Sparrow? This guy was like one of the only people that was allowed to go and get pictures with Johnny Depp when he was in the parks. This guy was, yeah, that's my Flynn. But that's Zombie Hunter Flynn. That's Flynn if he was in The Walking Dead or if he was in a zombie apocalypse. That was stuff that I wanted to do, but I've only been able to complete one of those.
It's you and your girl.
That's just like, oh, that's like, see, this is Party Princess. This is Party Princess Productions that I work for, and this is the costume way back in the day. And this is that's actually a costume you would have to buy like off of like Amazon or
gotcha.
You know, some Halloween store or something.
No, I just had to distract you. I like.
No, you're good. There you go. That's Halloween. That's where I was, you know, Brad Pitt, and then that was her as Marla Singer. And that night I threw up in her car. So threw up on her car and all over her car, and then we had to go get it basically the whole thing cleaned.
Yes.
And it was because there was vomit everywhere. And the guy halfway through cleaning it came up to us and was like,
"Don't tell me the whole story. I don't want to throw up."
Okay.
I'm squeamish.
Oh, you hate vomit? Okay, I won't.
No, I don't like blood. I don't like any of that stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
Dude, I freak out whenever I go get a blood test.
Really?
Yeah, man. It's for real, for real.
I believe that.
I actually like.
I feel that. Needles suck.
I actually tell them to put me in like lay down in the. So if you ever go to a blood test and you're like me, there's always, you can ask the nurses or the people taking the blood to put you and they have laying down table too. They only have one.
What blood type are you?
I think I'm O positive.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, cool.
I can't do it though. I'm not gonna donor.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah. I don't know.
Can't have my blood.
Yeah, I'm too scared of needles.
I'm sorry. You got to make the needle smaller.
It's just the whole process. So,
shit. Okay.
Let me clean that right quick.
Yeah, let me clean that really quick.
Let's see that. You can take that tissue.
I'm gonna move this because that was not.
That's all good. It didn't go anywhere bad. We'll take care of that. Oh, I turned my gain down.
I was gonna say, oh my god, the water didn't do anything, did it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm so sorry, dude.
It's all good, man. We'll work it out.
Another little fun fact about me is I'm a klutz.
It's okay. This is the live studio production, baby.
There you go. So you get the full true story. Logan likes
This is definitely not scripted
everything.
or recorded in the past. This is real live.
We didn't talk about a third of the things that we've been talking about.
No, it's okay. No worries.
Wait.
You still sound fine, right?
Your Himalayan salt lamp.
Oh, that's okay. I'm not worried about it. Not worried about it at all. Anyway, what were we talking about? I totally forgot.
Characters and integrity in Disney and stuff, I think.
Yes. So, going back to and I think it's very dangerous for people that will get really attached to a character, even their own character.
That's right. That's what we were talking about.
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, people at Disney. There were people. So an example would be, I was one day behind backstage, and there was this girl who had just gotten hired, and her name is Maddie. And she was so excited to be Cinderella. I get it. Like, it is a privilege to be a Disney character.
Yeah.
Like, especially a face character.
What kind of money are those people making?
$15 an hour. I don't know about now.
Gosh.
Now
$15 an hour to be Cinderella, Nancy. You do it? No, she's like, I'd rather babysit. I make more money doing that.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what my job is now.
She makes more money being a studio assistant.
That's basically what I am now. I'm a themed babysitter.
That's right.
Essentially. But anyways.
That's right. Yeah. In the parties, you just dress up as a nice character and then you keep the kids busy.
Yeah, I basically do what I did at Disney, except 10 times that. That's why people at Disney drive me crazy, because they're always talking about like, oh, my job is so hard. And like, I almost just like, dude, suck it up. You're sitting in literally a
They're not
line.
passionate enough.
No, dude, there is something called Love and Shove, and it's the saddest fucking thing in the world.
What is that?
Love and Shove at Disney is something that all of the princesses know and do. So when you go to Disneyland, yes, the princesses do this because they can. Love and Shove is where they go, oh, how are you? What's your name? Oh, it's Steven. Oh, that's nice to meet you. What'd you do at Disneyland today? Oh, you went on the Matterhorn? Oh, that's great. You want to take a picture? Okay, bye. That's Love and Shove.
Damn.
And you basically get the guests or the clients in the door, out the door as fast as possible while giving them the same, spiel.
Yeah.
And I hated that shit. I fucking hated it.
Because you're just disingenuous to the character. You're not representing the company. You're not being...
You're not. You know what? It's not representing the company because the company doesn't even represent itself anymore. It's representing Walt Disney and what he believed in. And I know there are things behind Walt Disney that, like, you know, are questionable. Like, sure everybody has a questionable past, but, you know, Michael Jackson might have done all those things, but that doesn't mean that he's an artist. Like, he's still an artist. Or that he's not an artist. Yeah. But he's not an artist because of that. No, like, just because those things happen, which is, they're horrible, if true, like, there's a lot of controversy around it, and, like, it's very hard. It's like the O.J. Simpson trial. It's very hard, but, like, you know, whether or not those things are true, he's still an artist. Yeah. He still brought something to the world.
One aspect of your life doesn't necessarily take away from another aspect of your life.
Exactly. Like, it's a very confusing time to live in because of, like, the internet, and the internet is so vast.
Well, we're living in this identity politics world where people are identifying everybody and anything to be this one singular way, and that's the only way this person is. It's like, do you not realize that people are more complicated than that? Like, it's, and again, I still, the reason my whole spiel is about self-awareness is because you wouldn't have these kind of problems if more and more people took the time to understand how they operate. Because once you take the time to understand your own dysfunctions, you will come to realize and be much more empathetic towards other people, because you'll realize the fact that you are operating in the same set of problem sets as other people. They have the same challenges every day, and they're doing their best to try to overcome them. Could they do better? Sure. But could you? Absolutely too. So it's like...
There's a guy in Huntington Beach trying to pay his credit card, just like there's a guy in Santa Ana trying to pay his credit card. There's no difference between maybe the color of their skin and, like, you know, their personality. But does that matter? No. Because they're the same fucking person. They're a human being trying to make it. And it doesn't matter, like, who they are or, like, you know, the color of their skin. And, like, you know, I'm not trying to get all political right now, but, like, you know, this is the truth. Like, this is the world we live in right now. Yeah. This is the stuff that we have to talk about. We have to
stop being so identified with one way of living.
And we have to stop saying that racism doesn't exist, because it definitely does. And there's no such thing as reverse racism.
I don't even know what the hell that means, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, reverse racism.
Here's the thing,
it's man. It's white people getting offended being called racists.
All right, that's weird. Listen, whenever I think it
going on tangents.
Well, no, it's all good, man. It's whenever we come down to, you know, anybody thinking that their belief system is the only way, like, even if that's you being super identified with a character
or a religion,
but specifically let's stick to the character because we don't want to piss off too many people today. But you know, like, you go into a character and you're thinking like, oh, this is who I am. And we do this when we're so identified with our own story. This is who I am. I am this person with this past, and all these things happened to me, and they were bad things. And this is why I'm going to be a bitter person and have a terrible, like, a front end of myself. Like, I have a really bad, you know, resting bitch face or whatever.
Oh, I got a bad bitch face.
So it's like you are so strongly attached to this, like, story narrative of yourself that you can't see past that. If even for a moment you shelve that, all your problems disappear.
Yeah.
Because who has all these problems? It's this story. Things didn't go the way I wanted them to go, so I'm now gonna, you know, retaliate or whatever the fuck, or do some stupid... Dude, where's that coming from? Like, that's just a story that you're saying. Things didn't go the way I wanted.
Something you make up in your head.
Things didn't go... Like, I mean, let's just dissect that. When people say things didn't go the way I wanted them to... Do you ever have any control over how things go?
It's an expectation of how your reality should exist.
And that's stupid, because you cannot have those kinds of things. You have to be just like, I'll do my part, and what happens, happens. Yeah. Because ultimately, that is the truth. And the more people deny truth, this is where internal chaos starts. Because deep inside, you know, when you're, like, supposed to do something and you don't do it, you get that little kind of jerk in your heart, like, kind of in your gut, where you're like, shit, man, it doesn't feel right, but you then go ahead and do it anyway. You know, you do that enough times, what you're doing is you're creating a really terrible inner environment. And that's the world, for the large part, that we're living in.
So many people are living in their hatred, and it sounds so cliche, like we've all heard this before, you know, people talking about this, but it's the truth, man. Like, it is what it is. People are living in their hatred, and they're living in their stink, and they're just living with it because that's what they think makes them happy, and it doesn't. Because
it's just an idea.
I understand that. Like, dude, I grew up in Orange County, like, as a seed on. Like, I understand. I'm white. Like, I'm I'm white, blue-eyed, and blonde. Like, can you guess what has happened in my
Heil
life?
Hitler.
Every fucking yeah, exactly. I've always told people that. I was like, man, if I was back in the 40s and living in Germany, I'd be like a fucking poster child for that
Nazis.
motherfucker. Jesus
Yeah, sure.
Christ. Yeah, that makes me. Then that's the thing. I don't even want to look into my past.
By the way,
like,
if anybody's ever gonna like look at that
relatives.
video and be like, these guys are supporting, like, I'm brown, so I'm definitely not supporting Hitler. But okay.
Yeah,
Again,
like,
point is,
yeah,
let's do this. Let's try this out for size. Why don't we do something real quick? If you want to just do it with me, it shouldn't take very long. I just want you to do this like little exercise. The reason is, anybody that's watching this can also follow along.
Yeah.
And let's just see where we end up.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna tell you to imagine anything here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to come up with some story, or just for a moment, and then we can go back to it. Just for a moment, everything that you know about yourself, your past memories, who your parents are, everything that's happened to you, all these ideas and projections of what you want in life, and just let's put all of those aside. Put them in a drawer for now. Close that thing. Nobody's gonna steal it. You can even put a lock on it. It'll be there for you at the end of it. Okay? At the end of this, you can go back to it. I certainly don't want it. Nobody else is gonna want it, so it's yours. But for now, let's just put that aside.
Okay.
So right now, the conversation I want to have from this point on, I don't want you to reference anything in the past. If you see that you're doing that, just simply recognize that it's happening and don't go there.
No, I respect that. I understand.
Can we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, because like I have a lot of history that it's things
We all
that
do.
have happened in the past, but I don't know. I always like to look at my past and study it too. And
I'm not saying don't do that.
No, of course.
I'm just saying at this
I get
moment,
what you're
for
trying
right
to say.
now, just put it aside.
Yeah.
Just for right now. I'm
sure.
not saying don't look at your past. Trust me. You do whatever you want. I'm not telling you to do any of that. Just put it aside for a little while, and then let's just talk.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
even do you feel any differently? Just if you try to just observe, just take a second in this present moment, just observe your inner environment without knowing that you're going to now not pick up anything from your past and not project anything about the future. In this moment, do you feel any different? Don't think about it.
If I forget about everything, and if I just like don't even focus on anything, and I just like look around and I'm like, where am I at? Like, what am I doing? Like, where's
So those
my
are all
body?
just thoughts, though.
Those are all just thoughts?
Yes.
Maybe I'm not understanding well enough.
Because those are all just thoughts, right? They're like, where am I? Like, who's asking that question?
That's true. Okay, yeah. My subconscious, like whatever's up in there talking to me.
Fine.
Yeah.
So something is just trying to like put out these thoughts all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay with me. Don't even bother those thoughts. Just let those thoughts come and go. You realize that you're right now probably not feeling any sort of baggage. I know it probably feels maybe empty inside. It feels like there's nothing here. But it's also not bad. It's not good, but it's also not bad.
Mm-hmm.
This emptiness feeling that you feel, if you're not so tied on to the stories in your head, like any thought will come up and tell you, well, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Just be here for now. This is what it's all about, man. Being present. This is what the present moment holds. So many of us are missing what the present moment has because we're just constantly on the hamster wheel of what's next? What am I doing here? What do I do next? What, you know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is, who is asking all these questions?
Mm-hmm.
Let's focus on that for a second.
Okay. Like, who's at, like, why are these questions
There's no
impossible?
answers to this because we don't know. You have no idea. I don't know.
True. Yeah.
You don't know. Science doesn't know.
Religion doesn't know.
Nobody
Science
knows.
doesn't know.
Well, actually, religion is actually probably the closest to
Really?
alluding to what we're talking about.
Okay.
So we're out of the exercise. So you can go back to your memories, by the way.
Okay.
Phew. So yeah, take all your shit and your baggage back and feel heavy inside about how all the bullshit you have, to take care of.
All right, back to my life.
Yeah, back to your shit life. Anyway, point is, a lot of religion, or I shouldn't even say a lot of stories, because religion is just like, it's a very overloaded word. A lot of stories that are, from different cultures, stories of the Bible, stories of the Buddha, stories of, Chinese cultures, story of, even let's go back to even like stuff we learn in school, like Greek mythology and, you know, all of that stuff. There is some, if you would get this more than anybody else, I would imagine, because you're, you know, in the understanding that all of it is a play. All these stories have an underlying meaning that they're trying to convey.
Okay, are we talking about like the hero's journey and stuff like that? Yeah, like the psyche of that?
Let's start with the first story in the Bible, the Garden of Eden. Okay, so I
just talked about that in my classics class that I was in.
So let me break it down for you.
Okay.
So the Garden of Eden is a walled enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
That story is very similar to the story of the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
He was the son of a king. He's a prince, young prince, Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
His father, as he grew up, made sure that he lived inside of a walled enclosure that was protected from all the chaos from outside of the world. Sound similar to the story of Adam and Eve? My point is, if you then dissect these stories further and many other stories of different...
There's a subtext.
There's always a subtext.
There's something right there that's the bones.
Exactly. So the point is, and you can see this with different movies, you can see... So
the Lion King is Hamlet.
Sure.
You know,
and all of it is...
so
Greek all mythology. Of them... So let's say they're all of these stories, and let's put them all in like different, you know, places, categories. Let's look for what they're all trying to point to. There's some underlying core that they're trying to point to, and a lot of it is to point you into the direction of the truth, facing the reality of what is. Because whenever we don't do that, all the chaos starts.
Yeah. Like whenever my truth is?
No. What's the objective truth?
Oh,
because
okay.
Your truth and my truth are perceptions.
Yeah.
Right? Like if we're looking at this thing, I look at this as, oh, this is a soundboard. I know what this does, blah, 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 because I've just like learned about it.
Yeah.
You bring in a baby in here, he sees none
flashing
of that.
Lights
he sees
and
knobs and stuff.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? That's not the truth.
Yeah.
The objective truth is that this is just a thing that exists.
I think I see where you're going with this, yeah.
So my point is, every story, if you look at it from a personal point of view, will have projections of your own like narrative. You will add on stuff from your life into that story. But if you were to take all that away, just like we just said, put your memories in a drawer for right now, and just objectively look at life, you will find that there is no real like chaos going on that like you think it is. It's just that you haven't realized that there's a still place inside of you that isn't bothered by all these things. Like, you know, we attach like, oh, I hate the president, or like, dude, pick a few things. Like, you are seriously just clinging on to all this shit that you can't manage anyway, and you're so distracted, and that's why you have such a shitty lifestyle. That's why you have such a shitty, like, you know, space in your mind, because you don't know
I agree with
that there's a silent place too that exists inside of you.
My life hasn't become better until I've realized to accept who I am, know who I am, and then like do as you're saying right now, and like just be like, you know, like accept the world for what it is, not for how you perceive it.
100%. And who you are and who I am, we're essentially the same if we take away all the subcontext. If we take away all of the stories, if we take away even the flesh, we're the same.
Yeah.
And this, in the spiritual sense, is what a lot of the texts that are out there are trying to get you to understand. It's just that we have added all these other layers of, you know, you have, you know, the sin factor, just do this and not that. All that stuff then creates all this other conflict. But unless you start being, you know, present with the reality, you wouldn't have those other questions, because if you're acting from the true place of being present, you would not have any doubts. You would not have any, is this right or wrong? No, because that will just flow out of you, because you're so present with the reality that's in front of you. You will naturally act out what needs to be done. And anybody can contest that.
And you can, and back to the character thing, that's exactly kind of where I'm assuming this is going. Like, that's what I do when I, in the moment, have to choose. Like, when I'm in character, like when I'm in costume, like even to adults, I'm not me. You know, a lot of adults, they'll want to sometimes like talk to me as like a normal person. They're like, okay, we get it. You're Spider-Man. Like, whatever. Okay, can we talk to Logan now? Like, I kind of just like don't drop it, because like I'm in costume.
Why would you drop it? No, fair enough.
And like, you know, it's like, you know, physically I'm putting on the skin like Spider-Man. I'm like physically putting on these costumes and becoming these different personas. So I can't have Logan there right now because
it'll ruin the whole experience.
Totally, because Logan's character is
not Spider-Man.
Not fucking Spider-Man. even though we have some similarities like in personality, and that's where I pull from to like, you know, become Spider-Man like to the best of my ability. And I'm not saying that like my, you know, persona of like any of these characters is the character.
Sure.
It's my representation of the character because
it's your rendition, your manifestation. You're the artist.
When I was at Disney doing face characters, they taught you to do your characters respectfully with an integrity with the character. Like, you know the story, but because of that story, build off of it. So like Prince Philip was the perfect character to do this because the dude's a knight, the dude killed a dragon, and he rides on a horse named Samson, and he's like, you know, got a sword and a shield. You know, he's the coolest out of all the princes if you want to like look at it. And a lot of girls apparently think he's the hottest. And this is what my girlfriend told me. She's like, I like Prince Philip because he's the hottest. Everybody like argues back and forth with Eric, but Prince Philip in the park is different from in the movie, but because the costume in the park doesn't exist in the actually the new that right there, that's the new costume actually. That one that kid's wearing?
Yeah.
That's the new costume. I think that's in Florida because I've seen that kid's face and I think he works in Florida.
This is the actual like cartoon version.
That's the actual cartoon version. So that's the Prince Philip that I was casted for, and I wish I could have worn that costume, but Allie actually is trying to make that costume for eventually. But I actually want to make the costume with his red cape, the other red cape, the one where he goes out into the forest, the one with
looks like Robin
the tunic.
Hood.
Yeah, it looks like Robin Hood, the hat and shit, but I like with a cape. Like, I could do without the hat, I guess, and just have my hair, but, you know, with the sword and the shield and the cape and the tunic and everything, like, made of leather and stuff, like, whew, man, that'd be sexy. Like, that's what in my opinion. As far as, like, character stuff, like, I fucking love, like, being Prince Philip. It's so much fun, because he's a nice dude. He's also what I've built off of it, like, you know, a knight. So he's very chivalrous. So he's very much about like ladies first. And he's always like making sure that like ladies, you know, go through the door, or like, you know, he holds a lady's hand when he's like, he makes sure the lady's on the right side of the street when they're walking together, you know, stuff like that, chivalrous stuff. And so like
he's a true knight.
It's a true knight. Exactly. He's like, I can't remember what century this is because I'm terrible with older, you know, time periods. But like, you know, in that medieval century, like chivalry was a thing. It was a big deal. Like Charlemagne, or I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a historian, but yeah, like Prince Philip was a lot of fun. We could work. There was a lot to work off of because there wasn't enough about him already. You know, like he has like a few scenes. Like people argue that it's his movie or Maleficent's movie over Aurora's because Aurora does have like a lot less screen time. Weirdly enough, it's actually more or less the Three Good Fairies, but Prince Philip was something that I could work off of with what I had, what he had, and I could build off of it and make something else. And I could be the captain of like the guard or something like that is what I would tell people at the parks. And I'd be like, oh yes, I was training so-and-so and blah, 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 blah. And I go into this tale about it, right? Or I go into the story about how Samson and I rode down into this like gorge somewhere and like, you know, we went and picked the
pulling
juiciest
these things
apple.
out of just
like
I'm
making this up in my head right now.
But
like,
you're so into the character that it sounds authentic.
Yeah, exactly. Like the thing is when you do character work, you have to know the character. So you have to know that character. You have to know that personality if you want to be good at it. Like I go into a party as Kristoff, first kind of shut out and like, I don't really want to talk to anybody because that's who Kristoff is initially in the beginning of the film. But then when he becomes more accustomed to Anna and more accustomed to human beings because he's lived with a reindeer his entire life and with trolls, he, you know, comes out of his shell a little bit more. So like towards the end of a birthday party as Kristoff, like I'll be a little bit shut off. And then like when I start, my turn is when I start to sing my song, which is Reindeers Are Better Than People.
Good voice
then
too.
He, thanks.
Hey Nancy, you think this guy can sing?
You want me to sing? I could sing something. I don't know. Maybe something from Sister Act that I did. But anyways, he when he sings his song is kind of when I do the turning point because people really get into it, and I obviously don't have a reindeer with me when I go to these parties, so Sven is singing in the song, or at least Kristoff sings for Sven.
Yeah.
So it'll be like, well, people will beat you and hurt you and cheat you as long as like whatever the song is, and so they you know, he sings that, and I have people kind of like join me and do the reindeer part, you know. But anyways, like, you know, that character stuff, I forget where I was trailing off to, but like, you know, picking and choosing certain things, I think as far as like and building off of it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what you were trying to close it with.
Where I was trying to close it with.
You take inspiration from your own life
and
pull that into the character's narrative, but you also are very well versed and study the character's lifestyle, so that way you can integrate your life into that character, so it's more natural.
You absolutely have to. If you want to act, that's what you absolutely have to do. And I'm not an acting professional.
Do you find it difficult that Logan keeps coming into the acting?
Difficult? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All the time. When
like
I'm in an argument...
snap out of the acting.
It used to be a problem. It used to be something that I had trouble with.
Because that, I think, right there would make, like, you said argument. I was just going to say it because when we argue, it triggers sort of like this fight or flight response, so to speak, where you're so attached to your position in the argument, like the idea that you're saying, that you can't see that you're arguing the idea. You feel like you're getting personally attacked as a person in the argument. And I guess if you're not aware, if you don't have enough of an awareness, your character would instantly fall through, because now you're going to revert back to your like natural way of reacting to arguments.
Yeah.
Right?
It's that whole not taking it personal. That's like a part of this really great book that I read. It's called, you've probably heard of it.
What is
The
it?
4 Keys.
No, I haven't.
Or not The 4 Keys, it's the 4 Agreements or something like that.
4 Agreements, eh? I'm going to look it up.
I think it's by this...
I said A because I've been watching a lot of Jordan Peterson.
I think he's Hispanic. I'm not... No, you know what? He talks... Yep, there it is. He talks about Toltecs, which I've never heard of until I read this book.
You can buy it on Amazon.
But like, you know, an ancient... I think Central American...
so what's the
peoples?
A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom. So what was this book for you? Tell me what it did for you.
So the 4 Agreements is, I read it a long time ago. I lost a copy and actually rebought a copy because it was just so good. And I want to have, like, I like to collect books. So like, I like to have a collection of physical
As you can see, we have our books here too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I love to collect books and make my shelf look nice and pretty. And
yeah, and this is not a pretty shelf though.
Nah, it is. It's your personality. That's what matters. Like,
I've really, I'll be totally honest. I've only started reading books like about 2017 for reals, like a little bit. And then 2018, like starting January, I started reading just because it was a really good way to silent my mind, I thought, because there was so much of like my own thoughts going around that was driving me nuts. This is before I became a little bit more aware of my state and started to really work on like myself from a psychoanalytic perspective and really dove deep into that. And I found out that like when I read, and maybe this is what you were trying to get at too, is like when I read, you're able to really calmly see that you're trying to focus on a task and you're getting distracted by your mind. And because you can keep reminding yourself with this physical reminder of a book in front of you that, hey, dude, I'm sitting down to read right now, you know, and not like do other stuff. So you're able to like kind of bring your attention back to the book numerous times. And essentially that's like really like kind of like taming your mind and giving it. And then once you're into the book, then you're into the book, you know, like it's a very, very meditative exercise. I found reading is, and that's the only reason like why I even do it now.
Because you can lose yourself in a book. You can sit there and read Harry Potter, and you're right there in Hogwarts. Like that's the great thing about reading. A good author, for sure. Yeah, I love reading.
Yeah,
I've been doing.
I've actually been really. It's kind of weird. I'm actually into more like technical texts as well. Like
same.
Because I'll look at.
The older I get, the more I read about like how to do this.
I got textbooks now, man. I got some textbooks. I'm actually trying to like learn like theoretically certain things. You brought something for us?
I brought a book because I've been studying this because like I actually was going to come down here at first and I was looking for a lead on a story. So I go to school for journalism.
Oh, okay.
And so right now like this book I have is called Dangerous Spirits.
Show the camera real quick. Yeah, there it is. Dangerous Spirits.
So it's about Dangerous Spirits, the Wendigo in myth and history. So what the book is necessarily about, it talks about the myth of the Wendigo. And the Wendigo, as you've probably have heard if you've watched any sort of like, if you've watched Supernatural, like the first season of Supernatural.
I haven't.
Or if you've ever played, I think it's Zero Dawn. I'm not sure exactly. But the Wendigo is basically what is now properly called First Nations, not Native American. It's First Nations. Wendigo, yeah, that is the European.
I think it looks trippy.
That is the European take on it.
It's I don't know how to say that word.
Algonquin.
Algonquin folklore.
Algonquian. I'm probably mispronouncing it too, maybe.
Wendigo or the Wendigo is a mythical
the Wendigo or
man-eating creature.
Or in Cree it's pronounced Witico. I'm pretty sure.
Nice.
Sorry if I've butchered that. But yeah, Until Dawn, not Zero Dawn. Until Dawn. Zero Dawn, I think, is a movie.
Gotcha.
But anyways, the Wendigo spirit is a cannibal spirit, right? As far as what the tale has been told. But this book goes into the fact of saying that the cannibalism is a symbol for imperialism because of the fact that this wild spirit, which it goes into a deep history about this Wendigo, about how the Wendigo spirit went from a supportive spirit and a spirit that was sometimes to plains native, indigenous people of that land. Sorry, I still get in and out and try and say First Nations. It's just, it's hard. It's hard because like I said, I've grown up in Orange County like a lot of people, and it's hard to switch over to that kind of language. But anyways, First Nations people back during that time, or even in ancient times, like way before anybody had like even like found out, hey, there's a continent here. They had believed in, from what we've been able to record, believed in this spirit, the Wendigo spirit, that like it's more or less symbolizes transformation, change, mostly in like a family setting. It's not necessarily like transformative change, which is what like the fantasy Wendigo is, which is like what the video games and television shows really are interested in, because of a author named Algernon Blackwood, I think. Yeah, he wrote a book about it, and there's more people that have written about it. But anyways, this Wendigo spirit went from like the spirit of transformation and cannibalism to like now cannibalism of a culture. It's not necessarily anymore, because in these indigenous cultures, in these First Nations cultures, from what I've been able to come to understand from the minimal amount of research that I've been able to do, which is not a lot, honestly. Like I've only been doing like a month's worth of research of really digging deep and really caring
More
to
than
read.
most people, anyway.
Exactly, really caring to read about the subjects. And I've been able to figure this stuff out easy. And I've been able to figure out, like, now, like, there are a fair amount of people that believe that this Wendigo spirit comes to symbolize imperialism. Because if you think about it, a Wendigo is a person who transforms into a cannibal.
Can you define what the imperialism is?
Imperialism would be basically like how white European settlers came to this country.
Right.
Settled in this country.
Got another visitor, but anyway.
Oh, okay. I was like, what am I doing? How European settlers came into this country, took it without even trying, with trying, but like totally just took advantage of these people, even though they had lived here first. And at first, we're like, hi, people.
Yeah.
Let's trade. You got stuff. You got cool stuff. Let's trade. And then they're just like, I
don't need the trade. I'll just take your stuff.
Indian, like, and shoot him. A lot of and then like the misconception with scalping it's not a Native American, Indigenous, First Nations people thing.
Really?
The whole like this cartoon about what's that freaking politician's name? They call her, or Trump called her Pocahontas. Warren. Okay. There's like a cartoon that was out there. I listened to like Native. It's really great podcast. You guys should listen to it too. It's called Native.
No. Listen to this podcast.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm just
not to promote other podcasts. Sorry, I forgot I'm on a podcast.
I'm totally joking.
There's this great podcast named Native Opinion, and you guys should go listen to it, because they really, really, really get down and tell you like their opinions about everything that's been going on right now from a First Nations people perspective. From people who are actually a part of a tribe, from people who actually are a part of a family that has gone farther back than any other family on this continent. And like I don't know their personal history, so I don't know. But like you get what I'm saying. Like these families, these people, these tribes, they have this such rich history, and now there's the mythology that they've had. This like actual belief in this spirit, it now represents something much uglier that has to do with people, that like it necessarily didn't shift gears until honestly like white settlers came around, and it kind of like shifted, and now it kind of represents. So I feel like I haven't really defined what a Wendigo is. A Wendigo is a spirit, a nature spirit that is said to be like what it kind of shows. It doesn't have that antler shit. It doesn't look like a deer. It doesn't look like an animal. It's a person. And the way it's described, because First Nations, tribes, they describe it everything orally. Nothing is written down. Like that's how they pass on traditions and information. The Wendigo looks more like that picture actually right there with that little golem looking guy.
This guy?
Kind of. More like the one that's the drawing at the bottom. To the left. The other one, log. There you go. It looks more like that one. That's a little bit more accurate. That's a little...
Just looks like an indigenous person.
Yeah, that's... I don't know.
Sort of.
I don't know if that's a great picture. That's just probably some white dude.
Anyway, so point is...
Some white dude probably drew that. But anyway, so what it is basically, if you go back up to the picture, I'll point out some of the details. So if you look at the picture, you notice that like the teeth are showing. That's because they eat their lips. They like the myth or the story is that they're so hungry, they're so cannibalistic that they'll eat their own lips and shit like that.
Damn.
They're covered in drenched in blood. There's also like the Wendigo also has like the power to, I guess, like copy voices and like be able to like whisper out. So like in the Algernon Blackwood book I've just finished a couple weeks ago, the story is about these hunters, moose hunters, who are going out moose hunting, and they have these guides, and the shit happens. Wendigo comes out, and it doesn't really show the Wendigo, but it shows this really creepy shit that like happens to these guys. And the Wendigo is like this supposed to be from in the book, it's said to be this giant monster, kind of like how it's described in that, and it has these giant strides and all this other stuff. And some of it is accurate, but a lot of it is not, because the Wendigo spirit is not a weird creature. It's a human who has turned to cannibalism because they were forced to, because they're hungry, not because they're crazy, what a lot of settlers back in that time called Wendigo psychosis, because they thought that these native people, these indigenous First Nations people, were literally going crazy. They thought they were literally psychologically going crazy because they had like some of these people had like said like, oh, they're eating people, when like some tribes in northern like parts of America, there's like one tribe, I don't remember one specifically, and I might butcher it, but from what I heard or what I read in a book, more specifically, I wish I had the book on me so I could detail it, but please do your own research. This book talks about a tribe that had resorted to cannibalism, not because it was necessarily like they like to eat people and like they're evil, it was because there is this belief that a tribe is like an entity. It is a being. Like you take something away from that tribe, and you're taking something away from that being, and you're making it less powerful. And not saying powerful as in they want to supplant all the power in the area, but powerful as in being able to defend themselves, being able to take care of themselves, more like that. And I know I'm just like some white dude sitting here trying to explain all this stuff, but this is just stuff that I've come to understand. And this is the stuff that I've like come to like try and like read and understand myself. But from what I've understood, it's just like this power, like, and if you take away from it, like you got to get it back. So like a lot of these,
it seems like you're saying it's like a system.
In some ways it's a system. In some of these one of these tribes that I read about, I can't say.
Now the tribe is full of these kind of people.
These cannibals?
Yes.
No. So the idea I've read, this is like backstory, like stuff I had like read into it a little bit. The idea is that this tribe had resorted to cannibalism, and it kind of affected other tribes because it was like the head honcho tribe as far as what I was.
Yeah, because they're doing the worst possible thing. They're killing people and eating them.
No, not necessarily. It was more or less because of the fact that they were just, I guess, the ruling tribe, and they, I guess, were, from what I read, in charge of the other tribes, I think, and they like helped them as well. I mean, I know that there's no such thing as probably like every tribe's peaceful with each other. Like, yeah, like everybody comes together and understands, but everybody has differences, and like that was apparent.
That's actually, I think that phenomenon is called tribalism. It's like you're being so identified. Again, this all is beautifully ties in with the whole identification part, because the more, if you're tied in with a tribe, like, and we're seeing this today with the Democrats, dude, there's not just two sides. Like, there's a lot of middle that we're just like discounting, you know, the same thing.
So much.
Can't be so identified with one tribe either.
And that's where I was going into with this, with like, I've been researching this because I'm super interested in mythology. I'm super interested in monsters, creatures, you know, sci-fi, stuff like that.
Sure.
And like, on top of that, like, you know, the Wendigo for me was like for a way for me to be like, hey, look over here, research more about this, like these people, like come into this and like really research and look into it, because like, I mean, I don't know how else I would have been like as interested if it wasn't for not only being interested in wanting to like research the Wendigo, but also being able to like just understand what's going on and really want it to be
going
different.
on today, you mean?
Dude, like the shit that has been, what I've been reading and what I've been hearing, and this is like, what, like crazy, and it's not even being publicized in the news, like mainstream media, is that there are First Nations women, like an astronomical amount of First Nations women that are just disappearing, being abducted, and I'm pretty sure are like being put into like sex rings. And if they're not being put in sex rings, then they're being probably raped and killed, or if they're not being raped and killed, they're probably just being killed. Or if they're not being raped and killed, they're being put to some other use. But the point is that they're being abducted, and they're being abducted outside of their tribes as well as inside of their communities, or their tribes' communities. And a lot of it is happening near the Dakota Pipeline.
Yeah, dude. I mean, there's no doubt that the world is full of malevolence and just chaos
and all that, evil. But that's kind of why now I'm like interested in this, you know, First Nations, you know, information. Like, I want to understand these people, because they have obviously dealt with so much shit, just so much bullshit, and it's just not fair, because I think about it and it's just like, I grew up privileged my entire life, and I now understand that. I didn't understand that while I was a kid, because how could you?
Well, we're not really. Here's the thing. Again, I'm sorry that I keep going back to it.
Yeah,
but
I know. I keep going on tangents and going into other things.
This is my only way. No, you're fine. I'm just connecting back. Like, this again is the problem of, we were never taught as children how to introspect ourselves properly. You know, we're never really taught how to understand the behavior that we are, you know, putting out. We are disciplined, so that tells you like, don't do this or don't do that. But you have to understand the implications of what happens when you continue behaving this way. You have to understand, and you know, a lot of people really trek across this when they go about living on their own and they're outside of their parents' house and they start doing certain things, and then they realize that, hey, I don't have any authority to tell me otherwise, and then they start to trek into uncharted territory in their mind, because now they're no longer, you know, being told what they can't do, so they'll keep doing stuff, and then they'll catch themselves into some, you know, sinking ground.
It goes back into that whole thing we were talking about earlier, about this incessive need to be able to say something in the moment. Like, I feel like these people just have to say something. Like, these people that are like standing up there in front of like cameras and like interviewers and saying like, well, no, I have a bunch of friends that are black. You're saying that because you got caught being racist, asshole. Like, we all know why you're saying that. Like, people that are not racist aren't going to go immediately to the, oh, I have a brown friend, and oh, I have an Asian friend too. Like, so I'm not racist. It's like, well, no, you're backing up your what little evidence that you have, so that way you can support your very weak opinion.
Yeah. But again, like, it comes down to how tied up are you with any of your sort of, you know, beliefs and opinions. And the more you are attached, I would raise the question to anybody is, if you're analyzing somebody so hardly for an opinion they hold or a viewpoint that they've put out, you should really question yourself, because what makes you think that you could do any better? And what makes you think that you have an opinion that's worth more than other people's? Like, you're
absolutely,
you know
none.
what I mean? Like,
who am I?
Good question.
Who the
Good
fuck,
question.
Who the fuck am I?
Who are you? And the more people look inward who they are, they will find out that you are actually not that much different than the people that you are criticizing. And the reason you're criticizing them is because inside of you, there's something that exists that you don't like, and you're seeing it manifest in that other person.
Yep.
But deep inside of you, that's probably your biggest fear. Yeah. Maybe, you know, and a lot of this is what I'm saying is backed up by psychology too, but go back to yourself. Like, be present with your thoughts, understand the system that's going on inside of you, because the more and more we do that, it will be a paradigm shift in our world. The more that people are able to understand how they operate in their own head, they will be then doing better things, because they're not going to be operating from like the shitty, blame the world loop. They're going to be operating from a place of a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding about how difficult the problem is, how difficult it is to actually exist in this world without, like, my point is, you have to know yourself. You have to really understand how you work before you just start like bashing other people and other shit.
Yeah.
And the more you do that, you will come to the realization that you don't need to, be so attached to anything really, because all of it's just fictitious. All of it's just made up. All of it is just there to entertain you. But even then you get bored of it.
Racism was just made up by white people.
It could be. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just like any of this mentality of duality where I'm better than you in any context.
Selfishness. It's like this incessive, like, it's just human, like we all want to be selfish.
Any mentality where you're like, I'm greater than you, or and I'm above you, becomes totalitarian. And anything that's like, everybody's like, we need to do, it becomes too much on the left side. Like none of that matters.
Yeah.
Just fucking be present.
Be present. Yeah.
Like cut all that shit out for a second.
Yeah.
Forget about it. What happens? Does that shit still bother you?
Yeah.
No. That means you don't need to waste so much of your cycles all day long, every single day, from the moment you wake up to the time you go to bed, to every post that you make on social media is about some bullshit belief.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean? So it's
I can't handle people that just like go on Facebook
dude, we do
or Instagram.
It too. We used to do it too. I'm sure. Like I used to do this shit too.
Well, that's why I hate it, because I did it too, and that's why I hate it.
But
the
again,
most.
you're more self-aware than you were now.
Exactly.
And
if I could give you like a little Netflix synopsis of like my life as far as like that goes in that direction, I would say that my life, I've lived as a privileged white person in Orange County, thinking and understanding in a very certain different like light. And I feel like since this internet sensation has happened, and since I have allowed for that information to come in, it wasn't just by
open
but it wasn't
to
just
new
chance.
Things.
You have to not only, I feel like, have maybe a personality for it, but you also, I feel like, have to just have empathy for it. Honestly, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, fair enough.
Having the empathy to understand that there are other people out there that are much like you, until you can really sit there and like consider, like, man, like, what would it be like if I was in that dude's shoes? Like, what if I was sitting outside all day long under a tree sleeping because I'm homeless?
You would probably be much nicer to that person when you pass by, because you would empathize with their pain, or you would understand that, man, I'm so glad I don't have to do that, and I appreciate the fact that you are doing it for us.
I just like feel like I don't want credit. I just want to be heard. I want to be like I have ideas. Like, I have a bunch of stuff that I want to like make. I have like a bunch of stuff that I want to say, some of my opinions are like, out there, I'm sure. And then some of them are like right on course. And like, I'm not a perfect person. Nobody's a perfect person, but like, I'm trying, like, I'm doing the best that I can. And I feel like I'm in a pretty good path, but it's taken a lot for me to be able to make sure I stay on the path.
You have to stumble and fall a bunch of times to realize that there's more to life that you have to like figure out. And, just to kind of give anybody who's listening to our conversation a little bit more insight, I think if you are looking and you have tried a lot of different things, you've tried like kind of chasing the material success, you've tried doing all these things, come and hang out with me. I'm going to do a retreat in San Diego. I'm going to do an awareness retreat. We're not going to do a whole bunch of things. We're simply going to learn, and I'm going to help point out to you how to be more present with yourself. And just for that time, for that weekend, come with the mindset of just letting go of all of your past and all of the bullshit that you've been carrying with yourself, and just come and see what things are like when you just accept reality for what it is. So that's coming up, and we're going to do this closer to summer.
Like other people and understand.
Yeah, and I want to bring out anybody who is still seeking and knows that there's something more, and you've tried a few different things and they haven't worked for you. It's more like you're not fulfilled with your life internally, and this is for that person. This is exactly for anyone that can, look at themselves and see that they're not where they want it to be, or their life is not what they expected it to be, but they know that they are, are on a path. And I
Maybe
just
they
want
to shelve themselves and learn how to.
Dude, I just want to show people a different perspective.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I want you to get out of your head, and I want you to see the world objectively, even for, 1 minute, and see if that doesn't even change your life. Like, I swear to God, it will change your life. Like,
it's crazy. Like, you say that, and it's so true, because like I've been an introvert my entire life, and then like I learned to become an extrovert and try and talk to people and really understand other people, and just like, get the guts, get the to come up to somebody and say like, "Hi, I'm Logan. Who are you?"
Yes.
Somebody that you don't even fucking know. Like today, like that's what working at Disney. That's what journalism, that's what a multitude of different things, Party Princess Productions, that's what all these different companies working these different types of jobs has taught me.
Yeah.
I feel like I've really learned a lot about how I can be a better me, how I can be more beneficial to the planet. I don't want to be just some dude who's like, yeah, dude, like if I can make like $1 million like every year and then just like live in my house and like, sit up in the Beverly Hills and blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah, what are you going to do with all that money? Just sit
Exactly,
there
like-
and be miserable?
And you know what?
How many rich people do you know who are making a shitload of money and are miserable?
Yeah,
You think that's still the answer? I'm
I
not
do.
saying money's not important. Money's necessary. It's a necessary thing, like it's a tool. But it's like, that's not all there is.
And I've worked in with Party Princess Productions and different companies. I've been able to work with celebrities before in character, and it's really fun. And I'm not going to say who, because I would never do that. That sucks. But like, that's true. What you were just saying, like, there are people that have all this money, but like some people are just sad, and it's really sad. And I feel like a lot of the times these people that do these kind of things, it's not necessarily because they hate you. It's because they hate themselves.
Sure. It's just the manifestation outward. And this ties back to the character part, is because I think those people that you were talking about earlier that seem to be so attached to the personality of the character that they're playing, they're just, I think, in a way, escaping perhaps their own miserable life or perhaps their own reality. And in spite of facing their reality, they're choosing to pretend to be this other character that they think is a better output and a better outlook on life. Well, shit, man. I mean, integrate that back into your life.
You see these people who make so much money, and you think that there's these gods. You think that you are like a plebeian, and then they are Zeus or Hercules or like these mythological people.
Sure. Yeah,
that are just like, wow, like I want to be them someday. But like they're just like you, dude. They're just doing a job. Anytime I've ever met a celebrity, I've always been like, hey, it's really nice to meet you. Like I just want to try and figure out who these people are on the inside, because who they are in character, you could try and put it together. And what you're saying, take these pieces, put it together, and try and understand who they are. But good luck, But everybody's human. Everybody makes mistakes. And a lot of people make really bad mistakes, and it doesn't mean that they can't come back from them, but there's also room to grow, and there's also a lot of room for them to be better. But at the same time, there's also an intolerance to it. There's a point where, like we've been talking about, where it's just like, okay, no, like you can't go there, dude. Like I had a straight up conversation with my grandmother over the phone for like 2-3 hours, because my grandparents are huge Republicans. Like they watch Fox News like they read the Bible. Like,
damn.
Yeah, it's insane. They like sit there and listen to Tucker Carlson just spew out his bullshit about like this and that, like whatever he's angry about or whoever he doesn't like. And they talk, when Obama got voted into office, like they said so much evil and terrible things that I know wasn't them. It wasn't them. It was what they had been taught.
Identification of the
It is what they had been taught.
Ideology, the idea, like this is the problem, right? It's like when people get to have to identify with a party, a political party, they feel compelled to, stay, okay, well, this is who I am. I am a Democrat, which means that I cannot do anything else outside of those boundary lines. Well, it's like, really? I mean, is that how the human world works? Absolutely not.
And you know what sucks is we won't be able to solve anything, because it always seems like a means to an end. Like it's an eye for an eye. Like I'm not going to do anything unless you do something for me.
Sure. Yeah. Anything that's like just a means to an end is never
it
coming
can't
from
just
a
be
place
like
of truth.
You asked me to come out here and do this podcast, right? I could have been like, okay, it's a professional podcast. How much are you going to pay me? Are you going to give me gas money? Are you going to do this? No, like I want to come out here and do this because I want to do it for you as a favor favor, and I want to be able to make sure that you move forward with what you're trying to do.
Yeah, man, appreciate
and
it.
I feel like this is something that like would, I try not to look at things as like, oh, how is this going to benefit me? Like, how is this physically going to benefit me? Is this going to make me wealthier? Is this
I actually try to look
more
at
stuff?
I try to look at more stuff in the same way
but I try and see it as like, what am I going to gain from this? Like, maybe, I guess, spiritually, or what am I going to gain from this? Like, psychologically, like, maybe if I come and do this, like, I'll learn something about myself. Just like keeping that question up in the air and being like, I want to do this stuff because, like, yeah, like I came here because I wanted to, and I know what's going on, and I want to be able to talk about these things, and help a friend out, because that's all it's about. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, that's like with all the movies I
think life is,
help people,
if you operate from the I want to provide value to others, you will find that it's really hard to fail. It's really hard to not find joy and not find good things also come your way, because it's just the way the universe operates, man. I mean, you call whatever, you look at karma is a real thing, and the way you behave has real implications, because if you treat somebody poorly, that transcends down to the next person, There's a ripple effect. I mean, you can see this go both ways. So you really have to choose to operate from your highest self that is necessarily good and intended well, and not looking out for itself only. And it's not, give. It's just, just be in the awareness of yourself at all times, and you will find that you really are full of just so much love, and you want to give. Like, it's almost just flows out of you. Like, and anybody that I've met who genuinely is like a real, genuine person, they want nothing more than to give.
That's how I felt like at Disney, and that's why I felt so heartbroken when I had to quit. It wasn't necessarily like, well, you didn't have to quit. I had to, because they like kind of forced me to quit. Like, they said, Logan, if you come back to work and if you're late or if anything happens, you'll get a point and you'll get fired. And I was like, and because they would like have this point system, and I just had like accumulated a lot of points because I had called in, or I just didn't show up. One time I didn't show up, and that went whew. But I would call out sick, and that means 3 days for 3 points, and it just accumulated. And like, most of those sick days were because I was working at the spaghetti factory. I would work as a waiter at the spaghetti factory in Newport Beach, and I would, what we called it, the spaghetti factory, peddling spaghetti, like as fast as I possibly could. And I made a lot of money, like a lot of great money. And I met some great people. And that, honestly, spaghetti factory, if anybody that worked at spaghetti factory in 2014, that was the best those are the best goddamn coworkers I've ever worked with. That was the best team I've ever worked with, better than anywhere else that I've ever worked with, even now. Like, I still wish I could work with these people. Like, the team was great, and I was never gonna give that up. Like, I was making bank. And on top of that, like, I had a great team. Why the fuck would I go back to Disney, who's paying me $15? They don't let me have Captain America because I'm half an inch off of what their accepted height requirement is. And then they don't want me to do, they tell me that I'm going to go do like Flynn Rider, or they go and tell me that I'm going to do this character next. And then it just kind of like keeps dragging on and on and on and on. And then I'm like, okay, dude, you got to give me a character. Because after a year, I was like, dude, I know 2 people I hired in with that have 2 characters now. Like, at least give me something. They're like, okay, we'll give you Prince Eric. And I'm like, that dude comes out the same amount of times that fucking Prince Philip does. I was like, I know a guy that does Thor right now who's the same exact height as me, but you put soles in his shoes so that way he's taller. You just choose who you want to put in it. Like, I know how this works. So I was like, you know what? Peace out. Like, I get it. You don't want me around here. I don't have to stay. So I left, and that's when I was just like, I'm going to go after Party Princess Productions, because I knew when I tried to hire in when I was with Disney that I would only be able to do certain characters, which means I would never be able to do Prince Philip for them, but like, they don't even have a Prince Philip for Party Princess Productions, so whatever. But I don't know, I just like, after that I was just kind of like turned off to Disney a little bit, and just kind of got worse and worse. I don't know, where was I going with this? Where would we start off with that? I kind of trailed in. I was going into that, something about Disney that you were talking about.
I totally lost it too, man. I was just on the journey with you.
Yeah, I was just like...
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
But quitting, but yeah, it doesn't matter. But we were talking about in the now.
And then we're in the present, man. Let's move on from the present.
Yeah.
So listen, I had a couple of the quick questions that I did write down because I usually don't write down questions, but I was curious. Because I've seen you do costumes and I've seen you do like your own, what do you call it? Like props, right? I've seen you make all that stuff. I'm curious, like what is it you're trying to go after? I think before the podcast, you were talking about some sort of show that you wanted to do.
Well, that's different. So I have like several different things that I try and do at once, and like maybe this is
see which one works.
Maybe this is thanks to Concerta, but like I've just been able to get a lot more done recently, and I've really concentrated on trying to get more than one thing done at the same time. So good. I've been working on a YouTube series that I want to create. Tell
me about that a little bit.
So the YouTube series that I want to create is a sitcom.
Okay.
And we don't really see sitcoms anymore. I mean, you do like on Netflix and stuff, but like, how the fuck do you get in there with like what you have right now unless you know a dude or unless you pay to get
so you're like, well, I might as well put it on YouTube for free, and if it's good, people will find it.
Exactly. So that's how pretty much the industry works now.
But, I mean, that is
you
the
put
truth.
your stuff up,
put it out, and if it's good, it'll make it happen.
You do a good job marketing it, you'll be able to make it.
Everything is a marketing thing.
Otherwise, you better be related to Steven Spielberg or pay out the ass for it. You know, and that's what a lot of people do. But this show, it's called We're Not Millennials, and it's about my generation, millennials, our generation, millennials. I want to talk about the obvious issues with our generation as well as other generations, because that's what the problem is right now. Yes. I feel like is everyone's focused on it's your generation's fault. No, it's your generation's fault. Like, oh, those fucking millennials. Oh, fucking baby boomers. Like, I'm like, that's a problem. You know, we can't, like what you said, live in the past. We have to live in the present.
Yes.
And that's a problem that this country has right now. Everybody's living in the past. Everybody's living saying like, nostalgia, well, this happened to me. Dude, oh my God.
Nostalgia.
Captain Marvel was crap.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Oh, man. You want to talk about nostalgia? There you go. But anyways, that's a different story. Where was I going with
the show?
The show
about millennials.
So we are not millennials is a story about, or a continuation of a story about like 4 or 5 dudes that hang out and they live in Irvine.
Cool.
The bubble.
The OC, baby.
The bubble. Irvine. If nobody knows,
I went to UCI.
Oh, you know.
Yeah, I know about Irvine.
Oh, so you know about Irvine. So when I moved away,
my parents, when we first moved to the States from India, we actually lived in Irvine.
Really?
Yeah, we actually immigrated to Irvine, and then my parents bought, and then we met.
That's so funny because my parents, we moved to Irvine from there.
Oh, really?
When I moved away from Mission Viejo, Ladera Ranch area, that's where we moved. We were like, well, we're either going to Irvine or we're going to North Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't know why North Carolina was an idea. I was like, those are 2 completely drastically different areas. And my parents are like, well, they smoke too much in North Carolina, and you guys are asthmatics, so probably not. And then we went to Irvine. So in Irvine, like, you know, like it's called the Irvine bubble. Like I remember on Snapchat when I used to have it back in the old days of Snapchat, they had a little geotag on there that says Irvine, and the word Irvine was covered in a bubble. I thought that was hilarious.
That is funny.
I thought that was hilarious. But the story takes place in Irvine or a town like Irvine where there's just fucking nothing to do. Like it is literally go to school, do a good job, go to a college, and then come back, visit mom and dad. It's like, you know, it's the cycle. And like a lot of people too were very privileged people who were able to do things like film, like myself. Like I should have never been able to touch the video cameras that I was able to in that time. So anyways, with the show, the fact is that like I want to like show that time and these 4 dudes dealing with these situations, growing up in this time period, trying to adapt to what a lot of people are trying to adapt to right now, is this sense of like acceptance and bringing people in. And like the first scene of the whole entire show, what I wrote down, it takes place at a place that's like P.F. Chang's. I wrote it as P.F. Chang's because I always like, when I write my scripts, I always try and write it like super big, like, you know, write it with no money in mind. Don't even think about how much this is gonna cost.
It's limiting your ideas.
Exactly, like it's limiting your creativity and it's limiting the what you can do. Because like if you really want to tell yourself, well, I can't do that, then good luck working in film.
A lot of doors. Yeah, yeah.
Good luck in
Fair
working in
enough.
film, dude.
I mean, that's true for any sort of like
anything. Yeah,
imagination venture.
anything creative. Or anything in life at all. But anyway, so it's the first scene of the show is them at a P.F. Chang's, and some of this actually happened, not all of it, but they're coming to P.F. Chang's after the night of a premiere, which did happen, which my friends and I, when we went to see the premiere of Survivors, which is that zombie movie that I was talking to you about earlier, afterwards we came back and we partied like fucking monsters at my buddy's house. I mean, we got crossfaded pretty hard. Like we just partied because we were having fun. Like we were like, fuck yeah! Like Logan was in a movie and we went to the premiere. And we were on the red carpet. And we took pictures. Like it was stupid. It was in Santa Ana. Like whatever. We were living our little fun fantasy.
Sure, yeah, why not?
And so the next morning we wake up and we wake up at like fucking 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're like fucking hungover. And my friends and I were like, what do we eat? And we're like, P.F. Chang's, because like my buddy Adam, his favorite place to eat is P.F. Chang's, and P.F. Chang's is delicious. Sponsor me. And what were they? Oh, so the scene takes place at P.F. Chang's, and it's this conversation about how they like just came back from this big premiere of this big huge movie that their friend Chad was in.
Yeah.
And so these separate characters, in a way, they represent the positions in our group dynamic that I've had with my friends for a long time. And I love these guys to death because I've known them since high school. I met them when I was a junior in high school. One of my best friends, Aaron, he approached me because I was in the same class as him, because all I did was sit on the stairs and eat my lunch and listen to Guns N' Roses when I was in sophomore in high school. Because I didn't know anybody. I went from Tesoro to there. And apparently they were rival schools. My friendships with Aaron, Adam, well, at the time, Michael, Ricky, they no longer exist anymore, but they do on paper. But all my friends that I've had, like I've kind of just took the experiences with them and took like their personalities, and I've kind of mushed them together into these characters that I've created for the show. And the characters that I've come out with that are what's the first? My character that I would play is Chad, and Chad is the rock star movie star. So he's the one who's also kind of a little crazy. So the other thing to note about these characters is the fact that each character almost in a way represents like a social disorder, like a type of anxiety or a type of like mental disorder that like a lot of people kind of deal with. You know, like very, very exaggerated things, not like generalized anxiety, but like very exaggerated
psychological,
yeah. OCD, sociopaths, you know,
sure.
Narcissism, whatever. Like that's one thing about.
So it sounds like it's like there's certain traits that they will have that are unique to them. Some sort of
like they're all inherently a little narcissistic. They're all, like in a way this and the way I'm describing this, like I'm sure some people who are listening or like you if you watch this show are probably going like, this sounds a lot like Sunny, like. Sunny in Philadelphia, it's always Sunny in Philadelphia. It is a big inspiration. We love that show. That is huge inspiration. But it's only an inspiration for the fact that it's a group and they kind of are messing with society. Because like I was saying, going back to the first scene, in the P.F. Chang's, they are waiting for Chad to get there. And it's Tyler, Chase, and Liam. And the three of them are waiting for Chad to get there because he was like at a late night like premiere party and left them in the dust, and like they were partying at the party as well, but they like couldn't find him was like the little backstory that I have. And then he like shows up after a while, but during this time that they're at the table waiting for him, they're like talking about things, and then Liam brings up like the fact that they're at a Japanese restaurant. They're not at a Japanese restaurant. They're at a Chinese restaurant. And
if you could call it that.
And so the joke is the fact that Liam can't tell the difference. So he was like, yeah, man, like
because he's in Irvine.
Like they're yeah, exactly. And so he's
only people
can't
from
tell
Irvine will get it.
Exactly. See, so he can't tell the difference. So he's at P.F. Chang's, even though there's a giant terracotta warrior and like horses outside, and he's arguing with one of the characters about it, where the character Tyler, he goes to the waiter comes to the table and they're talking, and Tyler's very excited. He's just the adventurous type. He really wants to like, you know, start this new journey and like make something of himself. And he's just like really a go-getter, but at the same time, like, you know, he's also really hard on himself. And he's also he's very optimistic, but he's also a cynic. He's very much a cynic as well. A lot of these characters also have a little bit of like my personality as well. But anyways, so this character Tyler is ordering the food, and he's like, he's like talking like he's a king of like King Arthur's court, and because we're all very exaggerated, and he explains to the waiter that they want Chang's wraps or something like that, and Liam goes to him and he's like, dude, this is a Japanese restaurant, and he's like, no, dude, this is a Chinese restaurant. And it's like back and forth between them, like talking about it. And then the waiter comes in and he's like, no, those are terracotta warriors right there. This is a Chinese restaurant. And then they all stop and look at him and go, what are you talking about? And then they continue their conversation with each other because they're just mad that guy interrupted. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're not a part of our group, bro. Like, don't try and befriend us. Don't be our friend. Like, that's kind of a lot like how a lot of people were in high school, as far as I remember when I went.
Yeah, I can remember that too.
But yeah, so it's just this whole conversation about like, you know, the fucking like difference between Chinese and Japanese people, and like, because like all of them are like, you're an idiot to Liam, and Liam's like, no, I swear to God. And I have these arcs for these characters. Liam starts off as a conservative, ends up a liberal. But he, and not for that reason, for the wrong reasons. Because the whole point of this show is just to showcase and satire people of our generation and people of other generations. Like, there's another scene in the first episode where after they do this really crazy, the way I want to shoot it is this crazy like smoking sequence where they all just like get so fucking high, because like that's what people in California do, you know, like that's what we do. Like, people like to just sit around and like, you know, sometimes get high with their buddies. And so this scene is super exaggerated because
it's legal, by the way.
Yeah, it's legal, by the way. Like, get off our backs, Florida. But what I was saying was the fact that like oh shit, what was I going on about? I totally just trailed. The scene. Okay, so there's a scene where they all, after they get like super fucking faded from, you know, smoking this weed that like for some reason has like given them this like hangover effect for some reason, because they've smoked so much of it. Maybe it's cheap weed. They end up in weird places. So like Chad ends up somewhere random in a park lake, probably like the one near Woodbridge. Like that lake or something like that. Yeah. And he's like, the night before, he's in full garb of Braveheart, like painting everything. And that night, that actual night that we went and partied, like after my actual premiere, I actually did like take off like majority of my clothes except for my underwear and put like a samurai sword over my chest and over like the front of me, and just was like super high and was just like whoa, like, you know, just like, you know, fucking around with my friends. But I took that and I was like, oh, that'd be funny if I like turned it into this. And so he's like Braveheart and he's in a park and he's like terrorizing people because Chad's the psycho. Chad's the psycho in the show. And the reason why I want to play Chad is because, like we were saying earlier, Chad is like the little part of me that I like need to sometimes just kind of like act out, because it's fun to do that, and I need to get it out. And it's like a healthy way for me to get it out. Otherwise, it would just kind of come out as like anger, and it would come out as like this like hatred towards people, and this hatred towards like, you know, even people that I know and I'm friends with. But I like to use these moments of like these characters that I'm creating, or even characters that are given to me and I get to like work with a little bit, and I'm changing them enough to where it fits my personality of what I want to use, but, you know, it still stays true to what the objective is of the character, at least.
So how many episodes have you written?
I've only written one so far, but I'm on like the 5th draft, and I've kind of been in a stalemate right now because I'm in between writing a bunch of different stuff as well, because I have 2 projects that I'm working with. I have a friend of mine, Jeff, who's actually the one I was telling you about. I invite next time or something like that.
Oh yeah,
but
sure.
He's the director of the Survivors film, and we I don't know, like on that film, we just like really like made all of us, everybody on the set, we all really became good friends almost. Like a lot of us tried to keep in contact, and you know, some of us didn't. Like, but I kept in contact with like the main cast, like the director, the main cast, and like, you know, the top build people, because I was working with them the most.
Sure.
And so, you know, Jeff and I have been going back and forth on different things, on ideas that we want to work on, and he's working on a couple different things. He's very specifically focused on horror genre. Me, I want to work on all sorts of different genres, but right now, he actually wants to kind of branch off and make a MMA film.
Oh, wow.
But not necessarily like a film, like a feature film. He wants to make a short Birdman feature, or a short Birdman type like short, where the shot is on me the entire time, behind me, and I have to be like, I really have to go to the gym and like work out and get a ripped back, but the whole time, and it's like,
I can help you.
I definitely will need your help. I will need like 5-10 minutes of me just like pounding dudes until I get to like basically
Sounds terrible.
this like underground ring where I'm fighting
Don't
this
be pounding
other dude.
dudes, man. Don't be making gay porn.
Fucking stupid.
Anyway.
No, but yeah, but like, you know, just like fighting a bunch of dudes like it's Street Fighter almost. So it's like underground fighting mixed in with mixed martial arts. So it's just like a fun fighting movie.
When do you expect your show to be done? Is it something you think in this year?
I want to start filming this summer. So I actually got.
Are you trying to get like a whole crew and everything together, or are you just going to do it yourself?
Absolutely. No,
Nice,
I've already asked a couple people. So there's the Chase character too. I've asked a friend of mine to play Chase.
So you're going to invest some money into this? Or?
Absolutely, yes.
Nice.
I'm going to look for investors as well, because there's no way I'm going to be able to pull all that much money. But I've been saving a lot of money.
Show like that would cost, or like to do a season? I don't even know.
To a season, ooh, it depends on what you're writing. You know, if it's what my friend Jay calls a walk and talk, you know, you're looking at like at least 10 to grand.
1,000?
Well, 10 grand, yeah.
Okay.
10 grand to make 5 episodes, maybe at the most. He made a movie with 10 grand, and that was literally bare minimum. Like, you have to have a lot of money and a lot of investors to be able to make a movie sometimes.
Or you do all the after effects.
But a lot of the time, yeah, and a lot of the time, the movie's budget goes towards permits. Like, the cities will ream you for the amount of money that you have to pay to film on a certain site, and then on top of that, you have to pay. Like, I want to shoot this very it's Nightmare Before Christmas, but a very specific song shot live action with a very specific character. I don't want to say anything about it because I'm sure somebody will try and do it, but shoot it very specifically from Nightmare Before Christmas in a graveyard. But I went and like scouted graveyards. I found a good graveyard. And the guy was like, yeah, it's $2 grand for overnight, which is what I need. And then on top of that, he's like, yeah, and you do have to go like get to the police. And I was like, fuck, that's right. I was like, damn. Like, you have to like get in contact with LAPD, and you have to pay a permit to be able to film and shoot there at a certain period of time.
That sounds silly, but all right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff. So it's not just like how much it's going to cost to just like make the movie. It's also like how much it costs to keep the movie going and still be alive.
Dude, I'm excited. Whenever you do the premiere or whatever, please invite me. Whenever you want to bring your guests.
I'll invite you to the first day of filming.
Hell yeah, dude. Bring your guests. We can like talk and stuff.
Absolutely.
That'll be fun.
I'm looking always for more people to work on, because my main objective is use what I got that I know that I'm good at.
If I can help in anything.
And help other people to do the same thing.
I'm with that.
Yeah.
How you feeling, man? Are you hungry? Because I'm getting hungry. We're like at the 2-hour, 6-minute mark. So
I'm getting hungry, but I can do whatever you need to do.
We've been talking for quite some time.
Yeah.
I think we should go eat or something, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, what do you think?
I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do want you to show me that belt, and I do want people to see that belt. So show me. So if you guys are not aware, is your Instagram up to date with the Batman thing or not yet?
The story is, but...
Okay, so check this out.
I'll put it on.
All right, even better.
Oh, do you want me to do those impressions that you want
Yeah,
to do?
sure. Why not?
I don't know, you're telling me.
Wow. So by the way, what Logan's putting on is a Batman belt that he made himself.
I didn't make this leather.
I know, but you put everything on. You got the buckle on there. You put the cases on there.
So I did this thing where I went on this website called Etsy, and I put these pieces together with my money. And I took this 2 pieces of a belt, basically.
Yeah.
I took this leather belt that this guy was selling on his Etsy account. And I told him that I wanted it specifically to be roughed up, and I wanted him to make it look like it had been through the ringer.
Yeah.
Because his is mustard yellow, and I was going for more of a bronzish, kind of like almost
looks awesome,
brownish, you know, something kind of more hyper realistic. So and then I wanted it to also kind of be rooted in the animation, you know, the original animated series. So I got this belt buckle, and then I'll show you. I basically took it. I took the belt buckle that the guy from the leather store or the leather Etsy shop gave me, and I used his buckle. I did some what's called scoring.
Scoring.
Scoring on the leather, which is basically just taking like a knife and cutting diagonally across a few times in different directions. And then I applied cement glue onto it.
Man, that's some dedication right there.
And then I cemented the 2 together, and now there's no way this is.
That's awesome.
Off, like no way.
So when are you gonna become Batman?
Soonish. Like I mean, I don't have it finished, but like I plan to do a photo shoot with Batman very, very, very soon. But I have, you know, the costume to go out to, you know, a friend of mine, so that way I can use it for my own stuff. So just in case, you know, anybody else is looking for a party character and I don't have the time to go do it.
Do some impressions for me, dog.
Oh,
what's your favorite? What's your favorite impression? What's your best?
My best. I like doing Pee Wee Herman a lot. Pee Wee Herman's a lot
much, but okay, go for it.
You don't know that much? Okay,
I don't know that much
like,
of him.
La 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 la. Wait, I get a little farther ahead.
Yeah, get further from the mic.
La 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 la. Hi, what's your name? My name's Pee Wee. Hi.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Or like a lot of people like I know you're not, or wait, what was it? I was like, I know you're not, you are. Oh yeah, I know you're not, you are. No way. What else does he say? Like everybody tells me that I have such a big butt. Like stuff like that. I like Pee Wee Herman a lot because I like to do the
That's funny.
You know, his laugh and stuff. Or I can do Piggy Miss Kermit.
Do it.
Or Miss Piggy and Kermit. I can do Kermit where he's like, "Oh, Miss Piggy, would you like to sing a duet together?" "Oh, Kermit, I would love to sing a duet." "Why are there so many songs about rainbows? And what's on the other side?"
That sounds really good, man.
I'm trying to think what else I can do. Oh, Shaggy and Scooby.
Oh,
like
Shaggy.
Zoinks, like Scoob. Like there's some ghosts in this house. Roast? Where? I want to be from roast.
My brother's gonna love that.
What?
My brother's gonna love that.
Shaggy and Scooby. What characters do I do at work? Oh, there's obviously Jack Sparrow, mate. You can be a pirate, and you just have to act super drunk.
I can't even type as quickly as you can do these impressions.
This is Jack Sparrow, right?
Right.
And he says, "Where's the rum? Why is the rum always gone?"
Why is the rum always gone? It's a good question, Mr. Sparrow.
I did something on my Instagram. My video I did the other day. I was like, "Everybody take a good look at me as Jack Sparrow because I will not be doing it again."
That's true, because it's a lot of work.
Well, not only that, I don't look like Johnny Depp.
True.
And like I said, I like to be true to the character. So if I had a Jack Sparrow costume, I would put out a friend of mine that looks more like Jack Sparrow to go do it. You know. I do Darth Vader in costume sometimes.
It's hard to do him without.
It's really hard to do.
Some muffling, right?
Yeah, like I mean, the suit muffles it just a little bit, but like a lot of the times it'll be like, I think I have my throat ready. Luke, I am your. No, that's not good. Luke, I am your father.
That does sound like the original Darth Vader for sure.
That wasn't that good. But hold on, let me think of one more thing. You don't know the power of the dark side of the Force. Your sister. Your mother, or Obi-Wan never told you.
That's good.
Like, like if I listen to Vader's voice in the movie, like I can kind of try and do it, but like
have you just tried like talking.
It's James Earl Jones. Try and do James Earl Jones.
Have you just done like where you just get in the character and just talk like can you do maybe a character, but then like narrate, non-character lines?
Yeah. Like, I mean, just give me a character. Like, I mean, what's a character you've seen me do? Like Spider-Man will be different. Spider-Man usually is my own voice. I mean, I like the new version of Spider-Man with Peter B. Parker. I really like the Spideyverse idea because it allows more kids to be Spider-Man and allows everybody to say, like, hey, yeah, like, you can be Spider-Man. You don't have to be you can be a girl, boy, like, Asian, black, or African-American or Afro-American, like, whatever you want to call it. We can be whatever, it doesn't matter. I love that about this new Spider-Man, and I love that Miles Morales is a thing now. Because he's such a good character and has such a good like wheelhouse of villains that are different from the original villains. They're like different versions of them. But anyways, like Spider-Man's is like, a little bit more high pitched where I'm just like, hey, how's it going, guys? Like, my name's Spider-Man. Like, nice to meet you, Peter Parker. Like, it's super simple. It's just my voice, but a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And just trying to make myself sound like a kid. And I'll be like super like, oh my gosh, like, like run around like going, oh my gosh, like, just being a kid, being a little kid and running around being myself. That's all about Spider-Man. Like kids.
Jack in Florida.
What?
What's going
Jamie,
on?
pull that up.
What is going on over here?
Like, what the heck?
Florida man.
It's always in Florida.
Don Spider-Man mask, liquor store burglaries. Check this out.
Look closely, and you'll notice the suspect stealing liquor and cigarettes.
Spider-Man, what are you doing? You don't drink.
Is wearing a Spider-Man mask. Deputy Bruce Milne responded to the burglary call in the shopping plaza in unincorporated Castleberry. When he retrieved the ring, no disguise at all.
Looks like Elmo.
To me, it was just a matter of just
terrible Spider-Man.
So much red. He looks like Elmo.
Anyway, that's really good, man.
Thanks, man. I can do all this stuff like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like everybody can do this Schwarzenegger. But like, get to the chopper. What are you doing? What are you feeding these things? Bloms. I love Arnold quotes. That's another thing I'm trying to put into the show is just Arnold quotes. Like, little things here and there. Like, they're like, the thing about love that I want to put in about Sunny, that I love about it, that I want to put into the show, that I really just want to like attest to, like Glenn Howerton and Michael McLaren and Charlie Day, is the fact. Oh, and D and Sweet D, you bitch. Like, I just want to be able to do this whole idea that they have been doing where they have something in the show that is reoccurring but is never explained. Like Frank's obsession with eggs. Like Danny DeVito's character in the show has this weird obsession with eggs and it's never explained. But like over time, like certain things are explained. Your own
interpretation.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. Because like, why the fuck does Frank like love eggs? Like he'll pull an egg out and he'll eat it. Like it's stuff like that. It's stupid crap like that. And like that's the kind of stuff I want to put in for the characters where they like do certain things. Like in the first episode, we have Chase talking about the fact that he's like he's just sick of like people like appropriating culture. So he like every sentence that is talking about like racism or anything like that, he'll throw out the word like a culture appropriation. He's like, oh, they're just culturally appropriating this, and he's not even using the word correctly, which is a lot of like what some people do. But sorry, I keep going on about the show too.
No, I love it. I'm super excited for you, man. I'm so happy that you have found something that you're passionate about and that you are pursuing it with full force. Because I'll tell you what, man, the world, that's the best way in this world to find your sort of place, because like you said earlier, the world is full of crazy amounts of evil and malevolence and all that stuff, and the way to counter that and not react to that, because if you go on the side of the world sucks, so I'm just going to be a shitty person too, well, that just makes things worse. So
and you know what, that's a thing I've come to realize recently too. It's just like I have a lot of things that I've done in the past. Like I've said racist things in the past. I have. Like I've been a racist person at like many points in my life. Do I want to be a racist person? No. Like I've said racist things.
Moment doesn't identify you though.
Exactly, but I said those things when I was a lot younger too. And like everybody always says, "Well, I was a lot younger." It's like, okay, well, it took you between 20 and 75 to figure that out.
Sure.
Whereas like for me, like I know and I admit to it, and I think everybody should admit to it that is also a part of it, because whether you like it or not, we live in a society that thrives off of it. unfortunately. And it's horrible.
It's what the,
and
like,
that's what
the
I
media
wanna,
plays to. It's kind of like the lowest common denominator of emotion that we play to. It's because it's the knee-jerk reaction.
Exactly.
It takes no thought to be angry. It takes no thought to just like lash out.
Yeah.
It doesn't even take you to like consider twice to just behave in a shitty way. It's just so easy that it takes no effort.
Yeah. And I like, We're Not Millennials isn't the only story I want to tell. I have so many other stories, like this whole Wendigo idea. Like I would love, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do it exactly with the utmost
I want exclusive
respect.
rights to all of your shows
Yeah.
and ideas on Blossom Media Studio.
I just want to make a movie about a Native American culture set during the time period about the Wendigo dealing with, being the Trail of Tears being pushed up into Canada, their like civilization, their people, their communities just being basically completely wiped out by Christian values as well as just basically American values at that time. And I just want to tell a story that's about like the story about a child in a tribe dealing with it, and the main characters are people in the tribe. Like we don't need to hear, like I love Dances with Wolves. I love Dances with Wolves. It's one of my favorite movies, but do we need more Dances with Wolves? No. We don't need that for any other movies. We don't need more Driving Miss Daisies. We don't need more like things. Like Green Book was a great movie, but I agree, like it is a lot like Driving Miss Daisy. It's almost exactly the same. I've seen that movie, but I don't even have to see Driving Miss Daisy to know what the hell it's about.
I think like every generation will try to do their rendition of the culture, and they try to like reconstruct different things that...
Exactly. But I think what needs to be done is just the representation, And if that takes me, a white male, to say, listen up, motherfuckers, like this is like the shit that's going on, and like I'm going to say it too, then like so be it. Like I want to be able... I've just come to this realization that like, this world is changing, and it needs to change for like the better in a lot of different ways. And I think that media is what is needed. Like this podcast.
We need more unfiltered media.
Exactly. We need stuff like this podcast.
Raw.
We need raw stuff. This podcast. We need independent filmmakers. We need independent journalists. Like that's what I want to try and do. Like I'm going to school for journalism because I want to research more, and I want to learn how to write better and look into this stuff.
100%. Yeah. I mean, this is the main driver for the show is like, we're living in a headline world, and I want to give people the rest of the story.
Exactly.
I want you to see that whatever people are putting out there, underneath it all, we're all pretty much the same, and we're all going through similar struggles. And if the more we accept that and not, think that it's a taboo thing, mental health is a real crisis in today's world. There's more antidepressants than fucking like vitamin pills sold, man. It's insane. So,
and there's people that are dealing with things that we aren't even aware of. Like, I feel like a lot of people probably aren't aware of the fact that like adult onset ADHD is really hard to deal with. Like I've really, like, not to toot my own horn or make me like be the martyr here or anything like that, but I've had to deal with some stuff that I've had to come and realize as an adult, and it sucks. Like I hate having to relearn a bunch of different things because as a child I couldn't remember because it was just a hard thing to deal with.
Just take it as a journey, man.
Exactly. Take it as a journey and learn. There's a quote from Tolkien that I love, and it's Gandalf's quote when Frodo comes up to him and he goes, like, I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened. And Gandalf turns to him and says, so do all who's lived to see such times. But that's not for us to decide. What we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us.
100%.
That was one of my favorite quotes of all time.
That's probably the best thing to end the podcast on.
Honestly, that's what I was figuring.
I was loving it. Thank you, Logan, so much for being here, man.
Anytime.
Thank you, anybody.
Come back anytime.
Hell yeah, dude. Come back and tell me about the show. I can't wait for you to like create more good content. I think the world needs as much good content that makes you think, that makes you introspect and not just bandwagon on. I think that's a necessary thing, and I think that's what you're trying to also do with this show.
And that's what you're doing with this show.
Hell yeah, man. We're going to make it happen. Thank you again so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a great night.
Have a good one.